Welcome, misfits. Here we go.
Hey guys.
Everybody is ready to this episode, for the most part, of Midnight Ranting. It's a lovely.
Make some coffee, Speed.
Make some coffee. Does God exist? Dun dun dun. The question that humans have been asking for thousands of years. So come join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, as we have some fun putting a deity into the hot seat. Oh my.
A fake deity. Not even real, so how hot can he get?
Woohoo! Times two. I want to thank everyone out there for joining us on the intertubes. Wow, how do they get the internet out of there? Oh, it's my 5G chip. Is it coming through? Vaccine 5G? Is it linking up?
It's magic.
It's
magic. Nobody knows how it happens. It's just magic. Don't bother even looking into it. Yeah.
Exactly. If you're feeling fancy, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe. Come on, the water's fine. And hit that bell icon, which I learned is also on Twitch. Twitch has a bell icon too. So no excuse if you want to see more of our premieres or join our live streams. Set that bell icon, baby. We are a skeptic channel. I'm looking a little skeptical here. But after our opening and closing statements, as I destroy my mic at peak volume, we'll be opening the floodgates, or rather, the open mic. Ooh. Ha ha ha. So you can say what's on your mind. Of course, after these two schmucks. We are an atheist, theist, or we welcome, because we are mostly non-believers, but we love all of our theists, especially the theist that supports science. Heyo! But remember, doesn't matter if you're atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, come as you are. Just on the sheets. I just washed the sheets. You can also find our Patreon page at patreon.com/Amy Newman. Woohoo! Which helps us make even more fun content, including awesome Patreons. Like, I'm trying to remember, there's going to be a third version of Thor. Woohoo! Variants! And KO Champ!
Coach Champ!
Thank you, KO Champ!
Coach Champ!
And also, Oz from the Atheist Roundtable and Networking Group, because as said, has to be food groups, okay? We're having some good tang. Sending love, Oz!
Hey, Oz!
Also, sending a shout out to the Better event, because the entire point of all of our non-believer shenanigans out here in the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Twitches, all of the online interwebble worlds is to connect. So, October, tickets on sale now. Let's build a better community. Better.
There you go. Woo-hoo. Be better, atheists.
Be better. Exactly. I'm biased. I say we do it better than the believers. The believers, they won't have a role play. They just schism. Just, my version's right, your version's right. But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, in the non-believing community, the tent is so big. We could pitch it, and we could go to the beach. We could just have a great old time in the non-believing community.
Like a tabernacle? Almost.
Oh, it's like a full tabernacle. We built. We could just, James. We could be out here all night with the how big this tent and tabernacle is, but also sending love.
Christians love to attack each other. Yeah, thank you, Ian.
Well, the Christians like to attack each other. The other different types of theists. So if you're Christian or you're Muslim, or you could divide it between the Abrahamic religions, and you can slice that cheese any way you want it, baby. But there's only a few different flavors of non-believer, and some of us of the non-believers use the entire. Are you an agnostic, an atheist, or a anti-theist? Well, I don't know if we're allowed to do this on the Wendy's menu, but good bam. Can I have all three? All three?
All three. So they can't all be right, all those theists, but can they all be wrong, Amy? Can they all be wrong? Yeah,
yes,
they can all be
wrong. Why, yes, they can.
There you go.
But we love them anyway, because we love everybody. Oh, it's like a love sandwich. Almost as good as ecstasy, but no, we just do it. We just do it right here with our big love with
From
Ian
Davenport.
Woo-hoo.
They can't all be wrong. Church of Entropy.
Thank you. Boo-doo-doo, but not just Ian. But also, it doesn't matter if we're listening to a snake around the earth, if they're telling us that there is a dome somehow. Some of these claims just make us go, buck, 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 buck.
Talking snake with legs. 6,000-year-old Earth.
As if losing legs were a punishment. I love that's how humans think. Because we're like,
sending people to hell.
We had legs, and so losing legs must
that would be bad, right?
No,
that would be bad.
The snake does just fine without legs. Okay, it's been surviving.
Can you imagine legs trying to hold up that whole body, like holding that body up on legs would just be, ridiculous. It did better without it.
There are already models of reptilian that does just fine with legs. The snake fills a different niche. That's why it's a snake. But yes, sending love and all of those thoughts that make us go grumpy.
The black mambas do seem content without legs. They do just fine.
Oh my goddess. And please, if you're a snake handling church, just know.
Oh yeah.
Just know. Yeah. Just stop before you
pretend that verse isn't there. Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing with just one or two verses of the Bible all the trouble it will cause, like the Tower of Babel. And now
pray to move a mountain, because the Bible also says you can pray to move a mountain. So when that mountain moves, then go ahead and pick up the snake. But until then,
Put the snake back down. Just let it live its happy life.
Leave the rattlesnake in its den. Yeah.
Yes. But also 3 princesses in 1. Diana Smith. Thank you so much, Diana. And
thank you, Diana.
You get Sailor Moon 1.
With the guillotine.
Yeah, guillotines now included.
Yeah. With Sailor Moon.
Sailor Moon.
She's going to be running her own concentration camps now. Sailor Moon, she turned into a tyrant, right?
Those are just camps where they send people to concentrate really, really hard.
They're thinking, right? Yeah.
I'm going to become a South Park bit in a second. But yes, I'm pretty sure that is where. But
you go from Carrot Top to South Park.
Oh, it's a good combo. I don't think so. South Park would be like, you're comparing me to. I know. There's a little bit of Carrot Top. I can't help myself. But also, but also he just did his second Talk Skeptic to Me episode where we were looking at the origins of mankind in the mythological sense. Go check it out because it was friggin' awesome.
It was a blast. That was a good show.
It was.
Oh, okay, all right, Gizmo.
No, it is such a very important point because I feel like a lot of what we are adding to the community comes from expertise around us, especially when we're dealing with claims about the ancient Mesopotamia and Mediterranean, like our flood myths in episode 1 of Talk Skeptic to Me, sending love back.
Wait a minute. So you mean the other civilizations also believe man came from clay on the ground? I mean, where would they get that idea from? Where would the Bible how would the Bible have made that up? Who would think of something so silly like that unless it was true? It's so crazy, it has to be true. It's like women finding the tomb open. Why would you name women? Because who would believe women?
I know. It's almost like there were stories around at the time that predated those origin mythos, and that this was one of a long line of traditions within that region. There's only one. Get it? One. History textbook. But yes, sending love, Pat. And also,
thank you, Pat.
All of the skeptics coming together. Also, that is what she said. Dale Pasto!
Thank you, Dale. Only Amy could cause that.
I can't help it. We're a little bit skeptical.
Time it. Yeah.
We're a little bit. Oh, I'm asking for protein, but the rest of the skeptics are just trying to say, empirical evidence? Is that really so hard? Is it really? I don't think so. All powerful, but evidence. Funny.
And I imagine we're going to have lots of evidence brought to us tonight. Lots of good evidence.
Fill us with evidence.
We're going to be covered in evidence. Filled and covered with evidence.
I do. Just bring me the empirical proof. Well, the empirical reviews all over my face. That's all what I'm asking for. Anyway, Dave Gar!
Thank you, Dave Gar.
From our round earth that doesn't appear to have a snake around it. And amazingly enough, no one cared about it, but I think there's a core there. I don't know why anyone. It's like we're all playing poker, and just everyone's going like, all right, no, I got nothing. And then someone comes into the room and they're like, there's a snake orbiting around the earth. And everyone's like, all right, Johnny, that is about as much sense in the theological context as we just
repent or perish, you're on your way to hell. Bye-bye, sir.
Bye-bye.
Welcome to the channel, Jared.
Welcome. Oh, yeah. Well, the pre-suppers aren't much better. We're going to just presuppose God. And then, did you know that you need God to even have logic? So the next time you're in line at Wendy's and you're going, do I need a 5 or do I need a 7? Remind yourself to say, wow, I'm thankful that I have God to help me make this choice.
1 + 1 + 1 = 3 = Jesus. You need Jesus to do math. You're on your way to hell, Amy.
On my way to hell. On a round earth. Because we are NASA shows around hell.
Repent or perish.
Thank you, sir. Repent or perish. Thank you so much, Dave Gar.
Thank you, Dave Gar, yes.
Hyena of the pack.
The master of disaster.
And Hyena is also matriarchal society.
The master of
Scott
fates.
Duke. But he is the master among all of the hyenas. if they also were ninjas for whatever reason in my head. Woo, woo,
The YouTube hyena ninjas, yeah, oh, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you, Scott Duke.
I'd put him up against Joshua Herbel any day.
Ooh, and it was a fun debate. Some good back and forth. I have lots of notes. I'm sure everyone will have their things to say. But last,
you took
but
time
not
out of your
least,
18-hour marathon to watch the debate?
I did. If anyone didn't know, I actually do shake weights for 18 hours a day. It's hard, but someone
She was
has to do it.
by the preacher who spends 18 hours a day, every day, reading the Bible. Now that's dedication, people. Thank you, preacher.
Send
if
in
you're
love.
going to do something, go all out. Do it to the max, and Amy does also.
Do it to the max. I do 18 hours a day.
Her arms are jelly
weights.
after that.
They are. Though those are mostly from the jelly shots. Nonetheless,
fuck us, Newman. Rejos, yes.
Fuck us.
Our Shakespearean prop for
That's
Bible
right,
study.
our Shakespearean skull, and go check out our Bible study. We are study.
And the Lord spake unto Moses and said,
"The Lord spake unto Moses,
the children of Israel, the Lord thy God, who brought thee out of Egypt."
And we are past episode 40, as we are in the book 4 of the Bible, Numbers. Holy moly! Even though there are 66 books, they just banded them all together.
They actually would be 69 books, but.
I know. Oh, baby. There were 69 books, but
they had to take
the extra ones were just so crinkly. But we want to thank all of our Patreons for enabling us to make such fun content, along with our mods.
They're just enablers. They let us come on and do this stuff. Thank you, mods.
Shake weights. And of course, viewers like you. So,
fuck us. Pancake of Destiny apparently did not see the Amy versus Darth Dawkins debate. So if you watch that, then you'll understand what fuckus comes from.
I had a very good fuckising session.
He has a unique way of spelling words.
Do you have some sort of ADD? Why, yes. No. Does God exist? I don't know. Though if someone put a gun to my head and once again said, "Does God exist?" I would say no. I don't believe a God exists. I can't know this for absolute certainty. However, there are good reasons as to why I don't believe one or multiple deities exist. Let's start with our baseline. The skeptic's mantra. We just don't want to believe in bullshit. Or rather, we want to believe in as many true things and as few false things as possible. So when it comes to a God, there seems to be no good evidence. I say good evidence because, in a way, evidence does come to our doorstep. Mostly in the form of holy texts and testimony from believers themselves. However, this God seems surprisingly absent from the equation. No longer do we get first person, one-on-one conversations like the prophets of old. No, we're left with a nebulous creator of the universe, curiously absent from being able to interact in the current physical world. If this God does exist, we need to give he, she, or them an award for Hide and Seek Champion Universe Edition. Though most followers of these religions insist that a God has to be a mind, or more so, that this God cares what we put up our butt, which to me is the most counterintuitive concept possible. In fact, this seems to be an anthropomorphizing of how the universe works. Is there a reason an agent would need to make the sun, moon, and earth? Doesn't that just seem like the forces of nature? That we're just carbon-based life forms around a moderately sized star? Lucky to even be here, and more lucky that we can communicate with others? And there are good evolutionary reasons for this, like our ability to hunt in packs. However, if God wanted some personal relationship with us, why go with text? Why use prophets and other middlemen? Why not just talk with us, one on one? If you ask me, this sounds like the Wizard of Oz. The miracles and grand claims look great to a few eyewitnesses, though all it takes is a single skeptic to bring the whole curtain falling down. So, does God exist? I don't know. However, if you're asking me one way or the other, I would say no. Not only is there no good evidence for a deity to exist, there are good reasons why an anthropomorphic, all-knowing, all-seeing, all-powerful creator of the universe is an incoherent concept. Thank you. Woohoo! So with that, how are you tonight, James? And what do you think? Does God exist?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say no. I don't think he does exist. And so I don't know if you. Hopefully, everybody was able to watch the debate. I got to catch about half of it, mostly the beginning parts. But I have to say, I saw some comments in there, and I concur that David Smalley did very well at this debate. He he was responding almost point for point with like the perfect responses. He was doing really, really well in this debate. So I have to give credit to him that every point that he was presented with, he refuted it completely, succinctly, and completely. It was a very good performance on his behalf. And what we saw from the Christian side is typically what we usually see from the theists. We saw efforts to construct their God claims to be unfalsifiable. Okay, well, you can do that with anything. You can make a claim that's unfalsifiable and then point out that, hey, people can't falsify it. But that's not very convincing to anybody who's really looking for the truth. If you just want to believe something because you just want to believe it because it makes you feel better, okay, that may be sufficient for you. But if you really want to know the truth, if you really want to know, is there a God, you're going to want a little bit more than what we've been presented with. And, I have to say that how fortunate, people like Stewart, like the Christian here, that he just happened to live in in a society that just happens to have the actual God of the universe as the dominant God in our society. And there's all people all over the world, they're just worshiping the wrong God, even though they have predominant gods in their societies too. But so I made a few notes here that I wanted to touch on before we open it up to everybody. And so we had the Christian in here say that he disagrees with about 80% of what God says in the Bible. And of course, David Smalley cut this off at the knees, say, no, you don't disagree with it. You agree with it. You might like it, like if you were making up the rules that you could have sex with any woman that you want to, but you understand, you accept God's rules that monogamy in a marriage is better. So you might you might want to sometimes stray from that, but you accept that his rules are better for you. So you strive to follow his rules. And that's the thing that these they shape their morality around God, and then they point out how moral it is. Although they seem to miss, they're always talking about genetic entropy. They rarely talk about the moral entropy that we've had in our society, and that is to say that apparently standard human morality and thought of the Bronze Age was the pinnacle gold standard of human morality, and we've just been decaying ever since. Wonderful Bronze Age morality standards about how to beat your slaves and how to sell your kids into slavery, and then they say, hey, well, how can you judge those people? You don't have an objective moral standard. I'll say, you're right. I don't have an objective moral standard. I don't judge them as if to say that I'm better than them, but I can look at what they did and their practices, and I can say that I'm glad that we don't do those anymore today. Just as I'm sure 200 years from now, the people look back at there's certain things we're doing today and think that they're glad they resolve certain issues that we still have in our society today. And let's see, what else do I have here? We have a lot of blaming the devil for problems and blaming free will, and God put it in a system where people have free will. People can choose to disobey him. So he loved us enough to give us free will that he has to honor our choices. And when we make bad choices, we have to suffer the consequences of that. Except that's not really what is supported in Scripture. We see right off the bat in Genesis, we see Adam and Eve created with being designed deliberately to be unaware of morality, do not have a moral compass, do not have the ability to know right from wrong. That was the way God set it up. Then we have God telling them not to do something, and God intentionally allowing a being much more intelligent with knowledge of right and wrong, to have unfettered access to these people who know almost nothing, and then God blames them when stuff goes wrong. I hate to tell you, but that's that's on God. That is not on the people who knew nothing. Maybe they'll say, well, God made it so they would know that it was wrong to disobey him, but that's the only thing they would know. Everything else, they had no knowledge of morality. They didn't even understand that they needed to wear clothes because they didn't eat from the fruit. And you also run into the thing of the devil. Well, so we've been doing our Bible study, and we're in the book of Numbers, and so far we've seen no clear reference of to the devil at all. We have a very vague reference in Genesis that they'll tell you that's the devil, but there's no clear. It's not clearly unambiguous a devil. So don't you think if there was somebody like that trying to run around and deceive us and get us to do bad things and things that make Jesus sad, don't you think that would have been one of the first things he explained to us? Like, listen, there's this really bad guy. He's gonna go around. He's trying to trick you. He's trying to deceive you. He's gonna try to get you to do bad things that make Jesus cry. Don't listen to him. But no, we don't have it. We don't hear anything about that, and nor do we hear anything about hell either. Don't you think if God set it up from the beginning that, okay, you have to arbitrarily choose to believe this certain set of beliefs on fact and choose to worship me forever, or after you die, I will do really mean things to you. I will roast you alive forever. Don't you think that would kind of be one of the things God would want to lead with? One of the most important things that humanity should know about? No, we don't hear anything about it. And that's because Old Testament Judaism was not yet influenced by other religions that had those concepts built into them. And yeah, they found out, oh, this is a really effective selling point. So, hey, you can believe us. You don't have to believe if you want, but after you die, God's going to roast you forever. So, I mean, if you want to come and believe, you don't have to be roasted forever. So, yeah, it was a really great selling point. But come to think of it, why would an omniscient deity have a nemesis, an enemy? Why would you have a devil? What being would launch an insurrection against an omnipotent God? It makes no sense. You could never hurt, you could never overthrow God, you could never kill him, hurt him. He could destroy you in a second. You would know what you were going to do from eternity before you ever did it. So why would anybody ever want to do that unless you take the Calvinist approach? So, well, God made him do that. It's all theater. Okay, but most of our Christians aren't Calvinists. So they think that the devil just decided one day to go on this suicide coup, and it blew up in his face. But yeah, now he's gonna roast forever in hell. So I guess it sucks to be him. But it really doesn't make any sense why you would have a devil, except for the point of would it be really fun to watch like superhero movies if there was no bad guy, if there was no enemy, no resistance? I mean, just Superman flying around and waving hi to people. If nothing bad ever happened or there was no enemy, that would be pretty boring content. And the writers of the Bible knew that too. They knew there has to be somebody to fight against. There has to be another side. And yeah, so we got the devil. Hello, Satan. But still no evidence that he's real. And it still really doesn't make sense from the standpoint of modern religion. And let's see what else I have. We were pointed out how most philosophers tend to be theists, whereas, of course, more of your hard scientists don't tend to be theists. And which that makes perfect sense because while I have a certain amount of respect for the field of philosophy, I've gone on some tirades about it that in terms of the question of deities, it's kind of a useless field. And while it does have applications, the hard scientists today are light years ahead of the hard scientists from 100 years ago. And you want to talk like 2,000 years ago, they're way ahead of that. The philosophers of today are still talking about the same stuff they were talking about 5,000 years ago. Because you start over at every generation, you start over because there's nothing physical, there's nothing to build onto. It's just abstract thoughts about our reality that aren't objective. There's nothing to compare it to. It's just an opinion, as helpful and as useful as it may be. So of course it makes sense that if you're a Christian, you have zero evidence of God in the natural world. So the precepts, they've all retreated into philosophy, because you can make philosophical tropes and works that you can never falsify because it's not real. They can make their unfalsifiable God, and we can never actually go to see that he's not there. And one of the stories that really illustrates this shifting is the Tower of Babel in the book of Genesis. In that story, guys in the desert, they're working together, yeah. They're building a tall tower. I mean, how tall could it possibly have been? 100 feet, 200 feet off the ground? Most likely not, but for the sake of argument, maybe a couple 100 feet off the ground. And God came down and he got really worried about this. This moderately sized building was a triggering point to God. He was really worried about this because he didn't want people walking up to heaven. And so therefore he had to confound people's languages, even though we know that's not how languages evolved. But just taking the story for what it is, it's funny that as humans generations later built taller buildings, much taller than that tower would have been, as humans learned how to fly, first with hot air balloons and then through aircraft, as humans went to the moon, and as humans launched probes out of the solar system that are still sending back data, we have never seen any evidence of God up there anywhere. So what was the God in Genesis so worried about that he had to come down and take that direct action? It only makes sense from the context of a people where nobody had ever been more than 100 feet or so off the ground, ever, in history. To them, the clouds up there might as well have been as far away as Jupiter or the Andromeda Galaxy. It was unobtainable, that height. So yeah, you could safely hide God in the clouds. Then as we went up there, we looked, no God here. Go a little bit higher, he's up there. And eventually we've gone, and now they say, well, he's not, he's in another dimension. You could never actually get there to see that he's not there. So don't bother looking, you silly atheists. But that's not the tune that we were always told. We were told at one point they believed that he really was up there. And the fact that there may be some utility in Christian morality does not mean that it's all good and that we can't explain it from an evolutionary standpoint, which David Smalley did illustrate very, very well, is that why would you care about things like integrity? Why would you not want to lie to people? Why would you not want to cheat on your spouse if you weren't going to get caught? And that's because in a society, you want people to trust you. You want to have integrity because people are going to trust you. And this makes sense. If you have a job handling people's money and you're stealing the money and you get caught and you go to jail, it's going to be very hard for you to get another job handling money. So you want to defend your integrity because it means something to you. If you're lying to your spouse about things, then she's not going to trust you, and it's just going to cause all sorts of strife in the home. Why would you want to live in a home like that? So you think it's better overall not to do things like that and to be an honest, trustworthy person to the best of our ability. And we all fail at that at times, and that's because we're fallible people. This is reality. We all make mistakes. And but yeah, most of us do try to do, I think, the best that we can. See if I just have anything else really quick. I don't want to take up too much more time. David Smalley, he pointed out he blamed God for things like cancer, and of course, the Christian comes in and says, "Well, no, God didn't create cancer. What happened was God made the system perfect initially, but he set it up so that the first time a human did anything he didn't like, all hell would break loose. Everything would get turned upside down. Women would have to go through pain during labor. Men would have to work to make food grow. Thorns and animals would eat each other, and all kinds of bad things would happen. Yes, cancer. You can't blame God on that. That's the fault of Adam and Eve and the devil, because the devil tricked them, but they listened to him. So it's all their fault. Well, God doesn't get away like that because he's the one who set that up. He knew it would happen. He is absolutely 100% culpable. He could have made it so that that wouldn't happen, and he wouldn't have to violate free will. But come to think of it, he really doesn't care about free will. And Christians don't even really care about free will anyway. They're all going to go to heaven and spend eternity worshiping God. They're not going to want to do anything else. They're not going to want to sin because God is going to take that part out of their free will. So free will is never all that important anyway. This life here is just, from the Christian perspective, a tiny dot in the speck of eternity. And why that getting free will for that little dot means so much to them, I don't know. But it's not real from a Christian perspective. So thank you guys, and love to hear what everybody has to say. Thank you for tolerating my babbling.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, James. Dude. Also sending love out to Twitch. I think Super Bass wanted to know if it was recorded. Oh no, baby, we are live. Frigate, we'll do it live. And all right.
Remember the resurrection when he brought that up? When he was like, oh, the evidence and David, he really nailed it down. He's like, no. People wrote down that people saw Jesus, and you have just chosen to believe what they wrote down. It's not evidence of a resurrection. Evidence that somebody wrote down that a resurrection happened. And you can find similar accounts in the holy texts of all of the religions, and they don't hold those to be authoritative. But for some strange reason, when it says it in this book, it's got to be true, right? Lucky
that's
for
right.
you that
well,
you happen
that's the
to
special
be part of that culture. It's the special book. And it's yeah.
And woohoo! And so with that, we are about to move into our open mic session. The link to join will be sent into chat in Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. I think there's a lot of people have some comments. We're feisty, spicy. It's gonna fill up fast.
Down in hell. Because,
yeah, baby.
Yeah, we our podcasts go down to hell too.
And we are a skeptic channel, though we implore those with a diverse set of views to join us. We will give everyone a 5-minute opener to say your point of view and introduce yourself. Afterwards, please remember, keep your mic muted when not speaking. Blah, 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 blah. Oh. And once again, shake weights, more shake weights. Once again, the topic is, does God exist? Let the fun begin. The link will be in chat.
So, yeah, you got to do it to me, Amy.
Just realized you were. What's the count? I was just typing because I didn't want that.
Oh, so I do want to put out there before we let people on that we are going to be a little tougher on moderation than we have been in the past. We do not want to talk over people. We do not want to turn this into a dumpster fire. So try to be kind and considerate to everybody, or we will have to mute you, or we will have to send you to the back to cool off. We don't want to do that, but we need to make sure that we're letting everybody speak and being respectful. And yeah, if you get mad, if you don't want to come back, it'll break our hearts. But because we love everybody, we love the people who come on our stream.
And I just want clean sound bites. And all right, the link is getting sent.
Amy wants clean sound bites. Yes.
Well, I think the listeners, they just want to be able to hear.
Yeah,
That's really the only thing, because
yeah.
we want people to say even views that drastically differ on our own. In fact, that's kind of non-believer crack. We're like, yes, tell us views that disagree.
Tell us about that snake. Tell us why the resurrection account in the Gospels is believable. Tell us what snakes ate before they were allowed to eat meat when they were vegetarian.
Vegetarian snakes. Always a funny thing.
Talking snakes with legs, yeah.
As if that would be the preferred way. But funny enough, part of the reason why those other animals are so intelligent is because they're hunters. And oh my goddess, look at that right there.
I see him.
Leophilius and Will and Jason. We're throwing a party tonight. All right. Is your body ready?
Let me check.
Yes. Let's check. Hold on. Where's my...
Let me ask God.
Everyone looks up. Yeah. I'm going to look down. God?
You don't need a mag. Come on, Amy. You don't need... Oh, you're looking for God. I was going to say, you don't need a magnifying glass to look for something else.
Oh, baby. Only on good nights. But yes... Moving right forward, I think, with that. And I see Drace right at the end. Woohoo! We're moving into our bodies are totally ready. That's what she said, or he said, or both if it's a really good night. And... Leo, what is up? Hope you are doing well. And what are your thoughts? We're asking the question, does God exist?
The first thing I'd like to say is, unfortunately, I was not able to catch David Smalley and Stuart Nettle, I think it is. I was not able to catch their debate. I wanted to, but I was busy with other things. As for the question, the topic of their debate and the question of tonight's discussion, does God exist? This is a question that has intrigued humans for literally thousands of years, and I don't think it's one that can be answered in more of a definitive state, but a definitive way. But I certainly think a plausible argument can be made. So I am an atheist. I believe that God does not exist. And I'm going to skim over a lot of nuances in my argument here, trying for the sake of brevity. Primarily, the reason for that is that not only do we not see any of the things that we would typically expect if God, in the way that it's been traditionally defined by numerous different faiths, did exist, we don't see any of that. We've tried to look for these kinds of things and have failed to see them. Things like miracles, which are, by all rights, violations of the laws of physics, are things that have never been observed. But even more than that, what God is at least traditionally defined as in classical theism, which is by far the most popular form of theism that we know of, God is defined as something that is spaceless, timeless, at least sans the creation of the universe, and immaterial. What this means is that this is a being which does not exist in space or time, and is not made of mass or energy. Well, that means that it's something which does not exist anywhere, does not exist any when, and is not made of anything, at which point it becomes an object indistinguishable from that which falls into the set of objects which are non-existent. And this is the fundamental problem. Things like gods and miracles and demons and angels and all sorts of supernatural phenomenon are fundamentally indistinguishable from that which doesn't exist. Those two categories, those two sets of objects, can't meaningfully be distinguished from one another. And I think that what this means is probably God does not exist.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, Leo. And all right, moving right along until we get into open conversation. Exactly. Good to have you. And Will,
what's going on?
Ranting, not too much, having some fun. We are Midnight Ranting on Does God Exist? Hope you are having an awesome time tonight. And what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I do. I believe that God does exist. I'm a theist. So basically,
Oh,
yeah. For those who didn't know already. Um, um, but no, yeah. I mean, the debate tonight I watched. Stewart, I'm not a fan. He's a hardcore Arminianist, so I disagree with him on quite a bit. There were several points that David made that I actually agreed with. For those who watched the debate, the super chat that I put in there, the question of did God create evil? It is illogical and untheologically sound position to hold that God is not the creator of evil if he created all that exists. That is a contradiction that one cannot argue away. So you either have to become a dirty Calvinist or admit that God didn't exist or didn't create all that exists. And I have moved, and this is my new space. So hope everybody thinks it looks cool. I do, and I'm done.
Woohoo! And yeah, I'm digging the new digs.
Well, thank you.
all the arsenal of propaganda back there, huh?
Yeah, all that Arsenal stuff, for sure.
Hell yeah, baby.
They lost
I
today,
know.
by the way. That's very good.
Ooh, I saw you go live. I should have stopped in there. I should be like, hello, sports. I definitely go local team.
Yeah, Simos and Randolph and all those guys say hi in the chat sometimes.
Oh, really? Yeah, I should come over there. And all right, moving right along, we are talking, does God exist? Jason, hope you're doing well. And what are your thoughts?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, great.
Hey,
Yeah,
Jason.
good to. Yeah, hey guys, good to see everybody. Yeah, big surprise. Yeah, I don't think that God exists. I'm not gonna take up a bunch of time because we're gonna talk about these topics. Yeah, I don't see sufficient evidence to suggest that God exists. It doesn't mean that God couldn't exist. It means that I just don't see sufficient evidence, and therefore I don't believe in God. And there's a bunch of stuff that we can talk about that. I won't go into the details, but I did watch some of the debate. Stewart kind of rubs me the wrong way, and I think it's because I really don't like his dad, like his partner in crime that he debates often with. I believe that's his father. I really don't like his attitude and his approach in debating, and I think that rubs off on Stewart. So I probably would agree with Will that I think Stewart had some weak points. And David, yeah, I like David's positions. I don't necessarily agree, I think, with some of the strategies that he took, but I think that in general, I think he's a smart guy, and he is pretty effective at articulating himself. So I will just stop there. I'll let everybody else get their opinion in, and then we'll have opportunity to chat.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much, Jason. And yeah, I took a whole bunch of notes too. So after we go into full discussion, we'll talk about the debate and the subject in general. Thanks so much for being here. And I'm excited. We got theist number 2, Eddie. Hope you're doing awesome. And we are talking,
Eddie!
does God exist?
What's up, Eddie?
Yeah. What's up, guys? Well, I think to answer the question why there's something rather than nothing, what a necessary something is, what appears to be a fine-tuned universe, a universe that appears to have some kind of beginning, moral realism. I think all these things point to there possibly and even plausibly being what we call God. And I think the life, death, and resurrection of Christ is reason to believe that God is a personal God and gives us information to who that God is. I don't think atheism is irrational. I think that it's a plausibility thing. And to me, it's more plausible that a God exists than not. And as far as tonight's debate, I like watching Stuart and his dad on the street just because of the controversy that they stir up. But as far as debates go, I knew David was going to own him, and David did own him. I'm kind of friends with David. I've been on his podcast before, and I kind of figured it was going to go that way. I'd have liked to seen his dad there, but we got what we got. So
Woo-hoo. Thank you so very much, Eddie. Yeah, they always make an interesting 2v2. The father and son dynamic duo. And thank you so very much, Eddie. We got Speed, Pancake, Oz, and Bubble. It's a party. We're moving along. Speed, hope you're doing well. We're asking, does God exist?
Oh, it's too damn late for me. But anyway, I did not watch the debate. Hope that's not a problem. I didn't know about the debate until 5 minutes
Not
ago.
at all.
I thought you were just having a stream. But anyway, so
Subject works.
Yep, I'm an atheist. Been an atheist since I was about 8 years old. Prior to that, basically, my atheism involves an epistemology, looking at what I know and trying to figure out where along the line I learned what I know or basically acquired that knowledge. And if I look all the way back, I was raised in a sort of a believer culture, in a small town in Minnesota. And so from 6 to 8, I just kind of accepted the adults were talking about this God thing, right? I think I believed in Santa Claus when I was 6, but, it was kind of the same thing. It's what I was brought into, basically what my parents told me, and I got everything from my parents. But then I abandoned that at around 8 years old, and it was partially because it just didn't seem plausible to me. It wasn't even plausible at that age. And as I progressed through life, basically I picked up a lot of science, and almost everything that I believe and know somehow stems from the physical sciences and the understanding of what the natural world is and what the natural world can do. And so I look at, so I kind of worship the complexity of nature in probably more so than Christians worship God. I mean, to me, the complexity of nature is just this wonderment, right? And I don't, as far as how did, or why is there something other than nothing? That sounds to me, I know they hate the puddle analogy, but we are this thing, from all I know of science, cosmology particularly, it seems like human beings are a very small deal in the scope of the universe. And I think it is unbelievable hubris to think that the whole universe was created by something that kind of works like we do, kind of builds things like we do. We build tables, we build cars, we build, forts and things like that. To think that we are copied into the entirety of the cosmos, to me, seems like just an unbelievable, prideful sort of belief, right? And I kind of reject that. So I see it as, why is there something other than nothing? Hell, don't know. It's really an interesting question. If there was nothing, what would it be like to be me, right? Nothing. So here we are. We have something. We don't understand the source of it. We don't understand what is outside of the Big Bang or the universe that we can acquire, right? But that doesn't mean that we have to find an answer to that question. And that answer is something as silly as there's something like a human being up there who creates things. That just strikes me as prideful and arrogant and just distasteful. I mean, to think that the universe, this great cosmos was cobbled together by some sort of a thing that was like us that cobbles together things, right? To me, is distasteful. And it's blasphemous. It's actual blasphemy is how I would put it. So all of that, I guess, leads me to a strong version of atheism. Part of my journey in science has been to acquire what I think is a good understanding of what my mind is, what consciousness is, and what kind of a being I am through neuroscience. And from that, I see that it's absolutely impossible for there to be a mind without body and world. So a mind without organisms, biological organisms, to me is a silly idea. There cannot be any such thing. And all of that leads to my strong atheism, strong naturalism. So I don't know. I hope that made sense. It is late, and I maybe have not had enough coffee to be up this late.
Woohoo.
That's it.
No, that made a lot of sense. And in fairness, I think everyone needs more coffee, though. That's the answer I'm going to give at all times, even probably right before bed. And thank you so very much, Speed.
Okay.
Woo-hoo. Only 2 people left, and I think Bubble as he tries to move through the Nexus, so like 2.5. We're wishing you luck into the internet voids, and Pancake of Destiny, and then Oz. But Pancake, hope you're doing well. We are talking, does God exist? What are your thoughts?
Oh yes. Hey everyone. I'm doing pretty well. Yeah, I watched tonight's debate. I'm an atheist, and for a long time I'm looking for evidence of God. But for no surprise, I didn't saw it tonight. Because for me, this is extraordinary claim. It needs extraordinary evidence. But so far, for so many years, I was looking for it. I have never found it. So yeah, basically, I think that's it.
Woohoo! I mean, yeah. Thank you so very much, Pancake. And all right, just one more person and a half. Bubble. He's gonna attach on. I feel for it. He's gonna the 5Gs that we're all getting through our vaccines. We need to hold up our hand and use that power to hold Bubble on. But Oz, I hope you are doing well. And we are asking the question, does God exist?
Well, hold on one second. I'm connecting to the 5G spirits. So one second. One second. Yeah. Those aren't there either. My bad. So when I hear Stewie and his daddy, they grate me. They grate me because they never actually answered questions. So as far as just going straight to the debate, first of all, like Stewie and Daddy never answer questions ever. Like, I've yet to watch a debate with them where they actually step up to the plate and answer questions directly. But when it comes to does a God exist, it's if we need all of these complex conversations, and if really we have to go to all of this philosophy and jumping through hoops and like conjuring things up. I'm still just being a common sense, just approach it from a common sense angle. Just common sense. No, I'm not going to buy into it because if the God was real, it would be simple enough to show. Just like here, like I have a lighter. I'm sitting in my car right now. I have a lighter. I have this lighter, and you cannot convince me that this lighter is not real, right? So if God was real, it would be more possible to me if God was real that you would have to prove to me that God is not real. So just like you can't, like I'm holding this lighter in my hand. You can't convince me that this lighter isn't real. So if God was real, he should be so real that you can't convince me that he's not real. But guess what I've been convinced of? More likely than not, he's not real.
Woohoo! I mean, once again, yeah. And all right, thank you so very much, Oz. And we have, it looks like a theist and an atheist left because we got deconverted man. But Bubble, I'm gonna leave all of my war-torn Vietnam stories to myself. But Bubble, we are talking. Does God exist? I hope you are good. What are your thoughts?
Hi, I just want to make sure if I'm roboting, I'll probably just leave because I won't be useful. Do you guys hear my audio clear?
We do.
Okay, because when I hear you guys, it's like really roboting. So if that happens, I'll just leave because it'll be just more of a distraction. Than
That
anything.
might be because they haven't plugged me in a while, but nonetheless, what do you think? Does God exist?
I think God's plural exists. Would one of them be the creator? I think so. One of them would be the creator, or multiple creators. I mean, if there's no patents, who's gonna stop another god from making a mermaid or a different human? And as a way to prove it, I always give my same experiment. Just pull a Ouija board, and if you see this ghost, well, that'll shadow your worldview. And if you don't, you're scared of this experiment. You gotta test experiments, and that's the way I prove it.
Woohoo! Thank you so much, Bubble. And I'm excited. We are about to go into the open conversation. That actually means it's a very diverse floor. We have almost as many theists as we do atheists, but we're adding one more to the roster. Deconverted man, how are you? We are talking, does God exist? What are your thoughts?
Very well. Just wanted to check out check out your stream.
Yeah, baby.
I'm a little tired, so well, I suppose you could say that God exists in the same way that Jar Jar Binks exists, and some people are fans of Jar Jar Binks, some are not. Some are fans of God, some are not. But regardless, it's a character that was created by humans for humans. At least that's what it appears to be now. Of course, it's a little bit more complicated with God because it's evolved with us over time. The ideas of God have changed throughout civilization to civilization, from person to person, from culture to culture, from, even people in the same denomination will tell you slightly different things about what God is. And it seems that if there is a thing out there that calls itself God, it hasn't cleared up all the confusion. So it is so well hidden that it might as well not be. And so we don't have any empirical evidence of it or a repeatable test for it. And it appears, I've been working really hard to find a valid and sound argument, but I have not found any of those either. So until we have one of those three things, I think we should be skeptical that there's a God.
Amen.
But not lobsters. Lobsters definitely exist. So just to make sure. Yeah, that's it. I got it. All right.
Woohoo!
Bring in
Thank
the
you.
dancing lobsters.
Got the lobsters in there. All right, I'm done.
Damn you, lobsters. But only if they're gigantic lobsters. They're about to take over the city. But with that, we are going to move into our open conversation. We have a full deck tonight, ladies and gentlemen. We're having fun. We're asking, does God
Goddamn
exist?
right, I have a full deck.
Oh, yeah,
My
baby.
deck is so full.
That's
Oh,
what he
Jesus.
said.
Oh god, I have such a raging clue right now.
That's what he said.
I like everything we're talking about so far.
Oh,
I have one thing.
Oh,
I'd like to ask
Amy,
you
what's with
about
being
that.
thirsty on Maine tonight, huh?
Oh, nice shirt.
We've done this. We've done this 1,000 times. Guess what? God still does not exist. So what's that say?
I want to ask a question to Oz.
Ask your question, Eddie.
How much do you love me, Oz?
I love you with all of my Christian heart.
Oh, that stung.
Love is in the air.
I do have a question. I just wanted some good discourse tonight. No debating, so I'm not gonna like go back and forth. But you would agree that our senses are fallible, right?
Totally.
Our senses are fallible. Yeah, I think yeah. Sure.
Okay. So if we only believe things that, and this is an honest question, this is one I've been dealing with lately myself. If we only believe things that come through sensory data, does that mean that only true things come through this fallible way of experiencing the world?
No.
Like that question, like I think that could be interpreted several different ways, but I think you're asking that based on what I said on my intro, and that is that like my senses, whether it's again the lighter, I'm in my car, the lighter, whether I can touch it, feel it, watch it fall, and then pick it back up. Could all of those things be like individually, separated from each other? Could all of those be fallible? Yes, but when we start to put them together, that I reached my hand down and I picked up the lighter. Now the lighter's in my hand. Now I feel the lighter in my hand. Now I raise my hand up, and then I lose my hand, and the lighter drops, and I hear the lighter drop, and I know like that. Those are things that now we're demonstrating that those things happened. It wasn't just I thought that happened.
Well, you could be dreaming.
So I swear this, I don't have any of this like lined out or anything.
But are you like you and I are dreaming together and communicating right now?
No,
We
I
could
would
be.
Yeah, I would say not. And well, this is something that kind of hit me this week with some things I was listening to, because, like I've said many a times, I'm real skeptical myself and kind of have to put things into perspective because I would rather sense data. And I don't think that compounding senses, I do think that compounding senses would probably strengthen one's belief or think that it's true or factual. And I think even adding in another person who sees or feels the same thing strengthens that. But this is what really got me this week when I was really thinking about it was, I wish I could grow long hair.
You and me both.
If you didn't see the screen, somebody put up they think beards go better with long hair like Jesus.
Can't you just push it up?
Well, here's the funny thing. I had long, straight, beautiful hair for a long time. And then it started to run away from my face. And as it ran away, then this hair like started filling my face, almost like to say, hey, you're an ugly SOB. So not only am I going to run from your face, I'm going to cover your face.
Maybe it just relocated. They packed up and they moved. That's all.
So where I was going with this, Oz, and this is a genuine question. This is not apologetics. This is not none of that. This is something I've been dealing with this week, honestly. My brother is schizophrenic, and to him, there is this reality that exists through his senses. And I know it's not real, but he has a friend that experiences a lot of the things that he does. So, lest we have, some type of ad populum fallacy where we say, okay, there's a large amount of people that experience this, so therefore it's true because my senses experience it. I have a hard time thinking that, knowing we have that bridge between the concrete world and the world that we experience, because not two people experience it the same way. I have an issue trying to figure what is true and factual if we're not going to appeal to the masses, if we're not going to appeal to multiple people. How do we determine specifically through sensory data what is true and what isn't?
Also, night speed. All you ask.
And I'm sure there's other people that want to answer that, so I'll let Oz and then whoever wants to answer that go.
And I'll give my answer. There's you included when I say this, Eddie, and probably everybody on the panel right now is much smarter than I am, especially when it comes to philosophy. But when I hear that, just for me, I'm very, and I've said this time and time again, just very commonsensical, street smart. Like that's where I come from. Like, that's how I process everything. When I hear these type of things come up, to me, it's like all of us take a step back and listen and observe and appreciate what you're hearing. Because if we can literally take the lighter, and I'm not being a smartass right now. I'm just being as this is how my brain, that's how I think, how I operate. If we can take the lighter, I'm sitting in my car. We can take the lighter, and whether it's your brother or myself or whatever, it's just the basic ways of observing, how things are demonstrated to be real to them or to us. I have the lighter in my hand. I know I'm not on camera right now, but you'll hear it in a second. But I have the camera, or I'm sorry, I'm not on camera, but I have the lighter in my hand, and I drop it. You hear it. That's evidence that I dropped the lighter, right? We don't have anything like that for a God. We have zero demonstration that anything demonstrable like that has ever happened to even start to demonstrate or show that a God is real and we could touch, test, demonstrate, or prove that it's real. So again, everybody on this panel is way smarter than I am, but that's how I process that. It's like, just give me, if the God is real, I should be able to do something similar. Obviously, I can't put the God in my hand and drop it like I do the lighter, but there should be something similar where I can demonstrate for me that God is real.
Okay, but look, you just said that you dropped a lighter and it made a sound. You said it. We don't have empirical evidence. You just have your statement. We have this for many things in real world, but we don't have this for a God, because there are hundreds of people who say that God exists.
Hold on. I knew somebody would say that. I knew somebody would say that. So I turned my camera on. Oh, you guys can't even see me. Can you see me? See the lighter?
Barely.
Yes, we can.
Okay,
Light it,
here's the
and
lighter.
then we can see it.
Okay. Oh, good point. There's a
There you
lighter.
go.
Okay. There's a lighter in my hand. And there's a lighter. Lighter lit, lighter dropped. Point made.
How do we know it's not CGI?
I mean, is the question, how do we know what is true? I mean, like, I guess I don't understand what the question is.
No, well, my question specifically was, if the senses are fallible and we
Right.
expect to know things only given the senses, how do we know when things are true and when they're not?
When is the premise that we can only understand things through the senses been granted?
Correct.
Because it seems to me that that would be a rejection of a priori knowledge.
Well,
personally, I'm not willing to make such a statement.
Well, I was talking specifically with his lighter analogy. That's why I directed the question at him, because he was talking specifically about empirical data. So that's why I was asking him if the senses are the way that we would know God, yet they're infallible. I mean, they're fallible. How is that a determining factor, or the determining factor to know that God exists or doesn't?
I don't. For the record, I'm not saying it's the determining factor, but like in the I can't remember, whatever associate pastor, assistant pastor, or whatever his title was. The guy that interviewed Monday, we had talked about this. It's not the determining factor, but for me, because all of us think differently, and all of us approach life differently. And like he asked me, so what would it take, Oz? What would it take for God to convince you that God is real? Well, just like I held up that lighter and I dropped it, but whether you guys believe I dropped it or not, you could say it was,
can I make a quick point here?
I'm not sure I understand where this is going.
Can I make a quick point here?
Okay. Oh, sure. Go ahead. Yep.
So I think the thing that needs to be said about a lighter is that I could repeat, I don't know if you guys heard that, but I could repeat the same exact experiment. Like that's an experiment that can be repeated such that it can be conferred time and again. We can corroborate it. What I often say is that our senses are generally reliable, but they're not infallible, and that is why we have the concept of peer review. That is why we developed the scientific method with the structure that it has.
And is the concept of our senses are the only way that we can evaluate the world is not really true, is it? I mean, we can evaluate the world.
Exactly. A priori knowledge exists. I mean,
through other means besides our senses, and we know for a fact that our senses are fallible, extensively fallible. Like as an example, we know, like, expert witness testimony. People say they see things with their own eyes, but they don't. I mean, we know that for a fact that that's the case. So if what you're saying is that if our senses are fallible, but we're expecting that our senses would be able to determine if
how many times do I grab the lighter and I drop it and Leo just did the same thing? How many times do we do this over and over again, and it proves that I'm dropping the lighter? Like I don't understand the argument.
Here's the issue with that, and I think a few here will know what I'm talking about when I talk about Hume's problem of induction.
Yeah.
You know the lighter dropped, but there's a twofold issue there. One, you are going on the fact that your senses are accurate, and you've already admitted that your senses can be inaccurate. And the second thing is, we know that you dropped the lighter, but is it going to drop every single time? And we can't, that's not something we can really know. Because if there's one time it
Oh my
doesn't
God.
drop, hold on. If there's one time it doesn't drop, okay. Here's the issue, us. So we call scientific knowledge, and that's what a lot of people mean by knowing things. Well, we infer that by past experiences. But if we get it wrong, that means it was false and we never had knowledge of that.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case.
So if all swans are white, and we know all swans are white, and we find one black swan, then it's false that all swans are white, which
True.
means you can't have knowledge of false things. That just doesn't that's not knowledge. Knowledge is what is true, and that's what Hume's problem of induction is. Induction is really our weakest way of reasoning. Now, I'm not attacking science and I'm not discounting science, but a lot of things we take for granted as knowledge or based on past experiences and descriptions of the way the world acts. We don't know the sun's going to come up tomorrow. We have good reason to believe that it is. And that's that's one of the reasons that I'm a probabilist and not, I mean, that's what my epistemology is. I think we can, from science, have a good probabilistic reason to hold to knowledge, but it's more along the lines of, what Oz was describing, like an empiricist kind of position where, scientifically we know these things.
Well, but what can I interrupt? Because what's interesting is the topic that you're bringing up. I would agree with you. I mean, this is why science doesn't deal in absolutes. But when we talk about God and when we talk about the other side who have belief in God, oftentimes what I hear is that I 100% know that God exists, that there is no question God exists. Like the presuppositionalists are like, God exists. There's no question that God exists.
Yes.
I know for a fact that God exists. So on one side, we've got, I would agree with you, is that induction does have problems. And if the other side would agree that they have problems, then it just becomes a probabilistic assessment as to which worldview is more likely.
I agree 100%. That's why if you heard my when I first started was I don't think that atheism is irrational because it is a probabilistic thing. And I agree with you 100%. Those who say that there's certain God exists, in my opinion, are as wrong as the hard empiricist because everything is really, now I can tell you this. I can tell you, being a probabilist and an evidentialist, I have a confidence of the knowledge of God that is a lot higher than what would seem for the evidence to lead to. And I can only attribute that to possibly the Holy Spirit that they talk about the Holy Spirit being an inner witness, but based on just evidence and probabilistic nature alone, I think it's more probable that God exists than not. And I don't have any issue with anybody who holds to a probabilistic nature that God doesn't exist. It's the certainty people on both sides that really make me wonder how could you be so positive? How could you be so certain?
But what evidence? We never seen any evidence of supernatural being.
Exactly.
But I think that's begging the question.
Can I clarify something really quickly?
Yes.
So I wanted to clarify on Hume's problem of induction, because he did state that he doesn't think that like induction is like not useful or that it can't work, just that induction is based on the assumption that the future will resemble the past. And Hume is questioning, wait, but how has that premise ever been established? It hasn't. And the only way you could establish it is to argue that in the past has resembled the future, therefore it will do so, which makes it circular. So he says, so how can we make conclusions via induction if the foundational premise to induction hasn't been justified? But I would just argue that it's axiomatic.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that either. And that's one thing we have to keep in perspective is Hume was a global skeptic. He didn't think
Mhm.
knowledge was possible. So
Exactly.
and it was because of, like induction and things like that. Now,
Mhm.
that's why I want to make it clear I'm not attacking induction. I'm not attacking science because I am a science person myself. I would love to have God be testable, repeatable, but as you well know, I mean, there are distinctions in knowledge and having
Mhm.
a priori knowledge, intuition outside of defeaters is justifiable.
It is.
There's a lot of things there that we can have justification for that doesn't require the scientific method, although I
Yeah, I
would
agree.
prefer. So yeah, I was just pointing out because a lot of hard empiricists rely heavily on induction,
Mhm.
that we got to be careful there because we are inferring from past experiences and we don't really have knowledge that it's going to happen. We do have knowledge that it did happen.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I had a question about the probability thing. Um,
No, Will, you're a Calvinist. Just it doesn't matter.
That wasn't me speaking, but I do
That's
have something to say.
that's not Will. I don't know who it
Oh, my
is.
bad.
Nobody's lighting up.
DM.
I,
that's
There we go.
thought I saw Will lighting up, but I was like, no, Will, just
Wait, you said DM, and I immediately thought Demon Mama, and I was like, wait, she's not in here.
No,
What the fuck? And then I
deconverted
forgot it
man.
was deconverted
I
man.
could be demon
Don't
mama.
remind
No,
us,
no.
Demon Mama.
He
Yeah,
went straight after Will before Will even said anything.
No,
Man.
I need to put the shark thing back up there.
The sharks and the whales. Makes sense.
oh,
There we go.
you
Go
wish.
ahead, DM, go ahead.
Oh, the probability thing. So, I've given this scenario a few times on my channel that if the door to my room suddenly opens and I can't find any explanation for it, there's nobody around, there's no animal around, and I know the foundation, sound, etc., and I just eliminate all these things that I know, and then I go, well, it's got to be a ghost, or well, it's probably a ghost, or something like that. But without the example of a ghost, how can I determine probability of it being something that I have no example of?
Yeah.
Will
It can be
wanted to talk.
natural experience that you have never seen or you didn't thought about it. It don't
Yeah.
have to be something supernatural.
I'll let Will answer it. He's been wanting to talk.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was the question?
I love the dolphin killing the shark, and we got
Damn, thank you, Killer Will.
we got Oz down here as the shark.
That's why I did it. It was a while ago. This is the first time I think we've ever been on the stream together with it, and it was a friendly banter.
DM, go ahead, Oz.
I just say Will doesn't say anything.
Oh, so on the probabilistic thing, so being a Bayesian myself, you would look at, you don't technically put everything through a Bayesian analysis. You would look at it as what's more probable and what's not more probable, and then not to get into the different types of probability. I would say that the fact that the door opened, even if everything is still sound, if there's no evidence for a supernatural or ghost or anything like that, there's no reason to add that into the probability. Now, unfairly, HVAC is my background, and I know what negative air pressure and positive air pressure does. And I'm very skeptical of ghosts. I would come up with some type of non-supernatural answer to that, which is why when I say that, as a probabilistic nature for me, it's the metaphysical questions. It's not the mundane, everyday, something crazy happened, therefore God. In fact, I would say that God is probably the last entity I would posit as something happening. I've had many a coincidences I chalked up to coincidence. Others would say that's God answering a prayer or something of that nature. And that's the last thing that I look to, because being convinced that, God is more probable than not, even if it was God or not God, I'm still going to give God thanks for, the coincidences, because I don't know. I don't know where God interferes, where God doesn't, or even if he does. But either way, the fact that I'm healthy and whole and have skills and have all these, everything that leads up to, failures and successes, I'm going to thank God for it, because if it was God, I want to make sure that he gets the proper credit for it.
I mean, can you even know? Can you even examine evidence that may support the existence of God naturally? Is that even possible? I mean, I don't think that is. I mean, if God is a supernatural being, and then naturalistic processes are how we examine our world, at least from like a methodological naturalism science perspective, the premise would be that we don't have the tools to examine what is supernatural. So we can't even know if something is supernatural or not. All we can say is we just don't know, unless there's another methodology that we're going to use.
Yeah.
Can I add a
I'll let
comment?
I'll let Will answer this one.
Yeah, so I mean, from the theological viewpoint, the evidence naturalistically would be that nature exists. And that's really the only evidence, right? So if you believe in a creator, the fact that creator exists as evidence of a creator, that's the theological viewpoint of it.
Yeah. I mean,
That's just circular though, isn't it?
No. If a
You're
creator
positing that
exists, it's not-
something
it's not-
exists as your premise, and then
No, no.
concluding from that well, if it
If a
exists, then
creator
therefore it exists.
the fact that the creation exists is not circular.
Well, but you're saying that the creation exists, therefore God, but God created the creation. I guess I don't understand. I don't understand
if
how
there's a car in my driveway, is it circular reasoning to assume that somebody's in the house?
Not necessarily.
But if creator exists,
somebody could be in the house and somebody could not be in the house. Correct?
I think Will. I think
That's
what
right.
they're pushing. Yeah, what I think they're pushing back on, Will, is saying if there's a creation, then there's a creator.
Right, but I'm saying
because that seems to assume that
for
creator.
the Father himself, right? For the Father himself, the only natural physical evidence, right? If you believe in the triomni and him being in the nature and that he is, right, outside of space and time, like all the things Leo said, he said it well.
But you're but just what you just said, if you believe in a triomni God, then therefore what you just said may be the case, but you have to make an assumption that there is a God for that assumption. If I don't believe in a God, and I'm saying I'm going to look at the world around me and I see it and I go, that's evidence for God.
It's an assumption, yes, but for me, from my theological viewpoint, right? I don't think that atheists are irrational either.
Yeah.
I think it's option A and option B, right? Those are the only two options. And option B is intentionally made. I mean, the theology says that for those who aren't given belief, all of this stuff is foolishness. So for you to think it's foolish, it makes absolute perfect sense to me, right?
Well,
I mean, that's
fair enough. I mean, and if you want to be like, I have faith that God exists, I can sympathize with that. I mean, because that's external to a kind of a naturalistic process. But if you're going to say the world exists, therefore God, I think that as somebody who doesn't believe in God, I can look at the world and I'm like, I don't think that the world is evidence for God. How is the world evidence for God? How can we frame that in a naturalistic mechanism that provides evidence for God's existence? I don't see it. I see it. The only way I see that happening is if I start with saying, I believe in God. Therefore, when I look at the world, I'm like, it makes total sense. I believe in God. I see this organization. It's attributed to God.
Yeah, then you just have to get into Darth's argument, right?
Yeah. Well, also,
Which, yeah, I mean,
you got to be careful with naturalistic explanation because you're skirting along the same lines as he was with begging the question. Because if you assume everything's just natural, and then you go to posit, a God and try to evaluate the evidence, but yet everything is natural. I'm not saying that's what you're doing. I'm saying you're getting really close to, if you want a naturalistic explanation for everything, that's going to eliminate God immediately. We have to leave open the possibility that there's a God.
Well, certainly, like there could be alternative methodologies that are external to a naturalistic mechanisms that we don't know about. Fair enough. And I think that what's interesting is that the naturalistic process acknowledges the not knowing. Like science, I think, and the methodological
theology,
naturalism
though.
is neutral on God. It's like it doesn't take a position on God. It doesn't say God exists or God doesn't exist.
Not all theological positions are as certain. For example, take the analogy of a car sitting in the driveway. If that car is at Eddie's house and Eddie calls me and tells me he's home, but he didn't call you and tell you he's home, how are you to know if there's anybody in the house or not, if there's a car in the driveway?
But this is a mundane claim. It's not anything about supernatural being. This is something normal.
I want to say good night, everybody.
You can't deduct in a normal way if someone's in a house or not simply because a car's in the driveway.
You wouldn't use deduction there. You'd use induction. You couldn't use deduction there.
Exactly.
And yeah, I'm going to interrupt because I know Deconverted and Oz have to leave. So we're sending love to both of them. And we're about to going to also add in Jen.
Yeah.
Jen, we are asking, does God exist? I hope you're doing good tonight. And what are your thoughts?
It's gonna be good.
Well, I just want to say I love the name of this show and I love this channel. So if you haven't subbed to the ABU channel, do it right now, bitch. You heard me.
Woohoo! And thank you so very much.
Did you say do it right, bitch?
I said do it right now, bitch. But anyway, that's just a little preamble to welcome myself to the panel and say that I was tripping out for that debate today. I was like, I've heard these arguments before. I've made both of these sides of this debate. I made arguments on both sides of this debate before.
Jen, you're too excited.
Really cool to see the Christians sort of be more into the rhetoric, and then the atheists also seems to sort of, I don't know. Did it seem like it was maybe both of them were performing on?
We lost you, Jen.
No, actually, Oz Night, and robot a little bit at the end. I think that was
higher level than
but I'm
you.
biased. I think she was asking what our thoughts were. I thought that both sides did well. I always think
the
atheists
didn't. One hands down.
I think, in my opinion,
that was harsh.
Yeah,
God cut her off.
I'm friends with David, kind of, so I was a little biased in there. But Stuart, without his dad, is just. I don't agree with everything his dad says, but he's a little more.
It's Rick without the Morty.
Yeah, his dad is far more
Pinky
forceful.
without the brain.
Rick without a Morty is still a Rick. So I mean that's definitely something.
Pinky in the brain. That was who said that?
Me. It's
yeah.
Pinky without the brain is what.
Pinky and the brain.
Oh, that's okay.
Oh, she froze.
I have beer bomb on my face and it's making my face glow.
Beer bomb on your face.
Yeah, it's all over the place.
You're supposed to keep it on your beard, man.
I love the last 30 seconds of conversation. Take it out of context.
What I want to know is Jason.
Yeah.
Right. If you take this, how about this analogy? All Barcelona fans thought for over 20 years that you would never see Messi wearing anything other than a Barcelona jersey.
I know, man.
And now it's happened.
It's just, it's like, it's blasphemous. How I went to dinner tonight, and the guy who sat us, but he just like went on and on. He saw my Barcelona shirt, and boy, he just talked my ear off about the Messier and Ronaldo, and like he just went on and on and on and on. My wife was like, "What the hell? Why is he talking to you?" I'm like, "Oh, he saw my shirt, you know." So
I do have a question for Theo.
Leo.
Why I did that on the last stream. What the
It's a thing that you and Oz do, and I don't know why.
Leo, I'm so sorry.
On my own thought,
I don't
Theo.
know why. I don't know why Theo sticks in my freaking head. I was actually.
You look like Theo.
Yeah.
I don't think I do. I think I look like what my name is that you guys will never find out. Well, actually, I don't know if there's anybody in here. Actually, Eddie might know what my real name is because I'm sure he might have seen me abouts on Facebook, but I don't think anybody else does.
I was gonna say I was thinking I knew you from somewhere else, but Leo.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually shocked to know that you're an atheist.
Mm-hmm. And a naturalist, yes.
And that is a compliment. Because I think that you are very open and honest about the different positions and how to approach them. As one who does understand, obviously, a priori knowledge, and isn't a strict naturalist, what is it that keeps you from being a theist?
Just well, I'm more of a doxastic involuntarist, so that question is really hard for me to answer.
Right.
More just because I haven't seen anything which informs a change of belief.
That's fair enough. So would you say? So have you always been atheist? Or?
No. I was a Catholic for the first 19 years of my life.
Well, that explains why you're extremely smart. Well, you know what I mean. It's non-fundamentalist. You know? I came from a very conservative Protestant church that was very anti-intellectual, and at least in Catholicism, they allow for different positions within it.
I would say that you're probably the smartest guy from West Tennessee I've ever met, Eddie.
There's a few of us there, but there aren't many. My friends all the time are like, "You're like into that philosophy and religious stuff," and I'm just like, "Well,
you're goddamn right.
Like, this is a philosophy I know right here."
That's right. Yeah, let's get that bush and get it going right there, Bo. That's what I'm talking about.
And okay, I'm going to interrupt you all because we got two more people. We're trying out just semi-new formats. Since now we're in Oprah conversation, we're going to give both of you guys a minute to introduce who you are and say what your thoughts are before we go into conversation. Oh, yeah, baby. Mark. How are you? We're talking, does God exist? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts on the debate. I want a refund for my question. My question was not answered, and I want to I asked whether he actually wanted the world to end, or what motivation he would have for keeping it going if that was the case. And he talked about, I wouldn't want to live forever in this world. That doesn't really answer the question, and if it does, it's kind of skirting around the this world sucks and deserves to go kind of thing, which is what I inferred, but it just wasn't directly addressed at all. I think that David did a fantastic job. He was actually very funny and personable, and I think that sort of has a real impact in a debate if you can come across as sort of friendly and have a laugh and that kind of thing, which I thought was fantastic. The only problem I had with David is that he used his opening as a rebuttal, and that kind of triggered me a little, because Hovind does that as well. He wants you to go first and then uses his opening as a rebuttal, and it feels unfair to me. You shouldn't have just one person with rebuttal time and one person doing an opening. It just doesn't feel right to me. Apart from that, I got to agree that Stuart without Cliff. I mean, you said Rick without the Morty. Honestly, I think it's Morty without the Rick. It's the younger, more inexperienced, less angry one. I would reverse it personally.
I'll be honest with you. I haven't seen that show, even though I hear it's awesome, and
it's pretty good.
What did you just say, Amy?
50-50.
Amy, what did you just say?
Calm down, Leo. Calm down.
But I hear you fucking accuser. You accuser. Get the fuck out of here, you accuser.
Amy.
Repent or burn in hell. Thank you very much.
Dare you, Amy?
How dare you? But I know that he wrote one of the main writers of Rick and Morty wrote Loki, and I love Loki. So
don't ruin it. I'm not finished with it yet.
Snape
no
kills
spoilers.
Dumbledore.
I love that. Loki was great.
Really?
I do have a correction.
So.
I do have a correction. I said a dolphin killing a shark earlier, and it's obviously a whale killing a shark.
It is, yeah. The
killer
orca
whale,
killing a shark.
orca.
The one thing I did want to bring up, and do tell me if I'm going wrong with this, especially you, Leah, because I know that you love to correct me. Is that I just said a backhanded compliment straight off the bat. So when you're talking about senses and the fallibility of senses, and I've come into this with some presups who are like, how can you tell your senses are real? And, I've just been forced to say, hey, I've just got to presuppose them as real. I find it really strange that you're talking to somebody who's expecting you to employ your senses to listen to them, but they're then questioning the accuracy of those senses. Like, if you can't rely on them to a degree, like senses are accurate for a given level of accuracy, then why are you listening at all? Because if you can't trust your senses, then whatever they're saying means nothing, right? What do you think about that, Leo? What?
So I think that the theist would probably respond with, well, now, it's not that our senses can't be trusted at all. It's that there's a limit to the trustworthiness of our senses. There's a point at which our intuitions about the way things work sort of break down. But I think that would work in their opponent's favor, where they could say, okay, how would you define where that limit is?
Right,
and then
right.
Can you show the relevance of that limit to this particular discussion?
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I get that. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because it's sort of we know we try to compensate for that fallibility of the senses, right? We
exactly.
have, spectrometers and interferometers and things like that to try and
peer review, which is one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, which is totally infallible, right?
Well,
no.
I don't know anybody said
go ahead and
that.
Socrates peer review for me. Why don't you? If you're so objective.
Wait, what? I'm Socrates?
Sorry, Jen. I'm not sure I understand that.
Yeah,
Jen,
I don't.
Jen doesn't think
really?
peer review is legit.
It's not that I don't think it's legit. It's just not a way to acquire knowledge, just like the Socratic method. And there's a bit of a
well, true, but
of course, peer review is legit.
Knowledge can be acquired in ways that are untraditional, which is obviously fallacious.
Well, I think it's a way to review and check that knowledge is that knowledge or the knowledge that you're sort of professing is ubiquitous.
You're presupposing you get knowledge from this method in the first place. I would go ahead and deny that, as it hasn't been demonstrated.
I don't think anybody's saying that you get knowledge from peer review, just that the process of peer review increases the probabilistic likelihood of the accuracy of some statement or claim by sort of checking to see if it really commits itself to the things that it's claiming it does. And I personally, I don't see a problem with that.
Well, to Jen's
just confirms the evidence.
Yeah, to Jen's point, though, science is about self-correcting. And by definition, how can you have
science is not about self-correcting. Science is about models.
That's
right.
Well,
but
yes,
there is a self-correcting nature there, and if it
there's
is
a mechanism.
When it's done correctly, it's self-correcting. But that's a bit to phrase it that way. I would caution against, because there's a metaphysical right? Framing as well, which you could argue is happening before it becomes science.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. My point was,
I liked a lot of your questions from before. Actually, that's kind of part of what enticed me to ultimately come on, was what you were saying. I think.
Yeah,
about the senses being unreliable. Like, you can definitely acknowledge that there is a problem with the senses, and that there are ways to be more reliable than the senses.
Yeah.
Right. And
I agree.
And my point is, if it's self-correcting, how can it be knowledge? Because it's constantly fixing what we thought was true.
What's wrong with that?
God's the root of knowledge, and then you correct on the way to getting the God
Remember,
knowledge.
we're not saying that the outcomes are absolutely true. Science is constantly course correcting. We acknowledge that. I mean, we're trying to hit the bullseye, but we're slowly getting closer and closer. Are we ever going to hit the bullseye?
You're not getting closer to knowledge. You're getting farther away.
Wait,
That's the whole point.
can I make a clarification here really quickly?
That's just a total speculation, Jen.
I think we're equivocating.
All other scientists disagree with you, or most of them.
Ad populum.
But wait, I think
but they're
hold on. Let Leo. I think Leo's going to hit something.
Yeah, let Leo go.
Go ahead.
So, I think there's a problem here. As I understand it, I don't think a lot of those philosophers who work in epistemology would. There's very much a debate about whether the scientific method gives us knowledge, and myself, I don't know if I'm willing to make that commitment. I don't think science gives us knowledge. I mean, and I think Eddie has a point. Like, we once thought that atoms were irreducible, and we knew that atoms were irreducible until they were reducible. I mean, I think science gives us very, very accurate ideas that have an extraordinarily high plausibility and probability of having truth, but I don't think that the scientific processes guarantee truth or really establish it firmly for us to say that we have knowledge. Now, I did want to say that knowledge, the term scientific knowledge, the word knowledge can be used colloquially or loosely just to refer to the information we've gained through science, but I think we all acknowledge that one could come to a particular set of conclusions based on that. We all observe that broadly there is a consensus within pretty much every respected field as to what the conclusions of the data are, but we're always going to find detractors, and that point leads into something else, so I'll leave it there for now. And
to his point, here's what I was thinking about, because this was presented to me this week. When, because like I said, I'm extremely high on scientific findings and things, but the truth of the matter is science works, and that's what science is geared towards, and engineering is, it works. It's not geared towards knowing the reality of things. It's not geared towards trying to find what truth is or things of that nature.
Well, people used to believe that science works because of God until something called Christianity made everybody stop believing in God. So time to kind of look in the mirror in that respect.
Right. And that's actually where I was going to go is, Newton was laughed at for his Newtonian physics. And then Einstein was laughed at for his theory of relativity. So when we look at science, we have to understand
quantum mechanics was laughed at by everybody because it just sounded fucking silly.
Absolutely. And that's the thing is, science works as far as technology and ingenuity. It's not a field for discovering the why or exactly the what. It's about how the world, we can have knowledge of how the world works in specific situations at specific times, and we can build on that knowledge for technological advances and things of that nature, but it doesn't give us the whys to life or even the what. We don't even know exactly. For example, we have models for models and models. And then if we take and we reduce science down, we get to all the different fields. We don't know what energy is. We don't know what the Higgs field is. We don't know what gravity is. We don't know what all of these, the strong force, the weak force, nuclear force, we don't know what all these things are.
It depends on what you mean by that.
I think you're being. I think that's kind of somewhat disingenuous to say that we don't know. We
don't
may not know. We may not know absolutely, but we have very good knowledge of.
They are nothing but axioms.
You have
in science.
absolutely no way of knowing whether you're right.
I think
or
a good point.
Okay, everybody, one at a time. Come on.
They are axioms in science. That's it. I mean, this is not controversial. We don't know what energy is.
Yeah, we do. Energy is the ability to do work.
No. That doesn't tell us. That is an axiom in science. We know we have the law of conservation of energy. We have that energy cannot be destroyed and cannot be created. These are axioms in science.
Why are they axioms?
But hold on, they might be axioms, but they are a posteriori axioms.
What is energy? What is energy? What is
energy? Energy is the ability to do work.
What is energy itself? What is the substance of energy?
Energy isn't a substance. It's the ability to do work. It's a potential existing in all systems.
Right.
It can actualize.
That's
and we can measure its
axiom that we
actualization.
use in science.
It's not really an axiom because it's a posteriori. It's based on observations. So I would fail to see how it's axiomatic.
Fine, it's an axiom. So what?
But I don't grant that, and I'm the one having.
He's going to say no to everything because he just
likes
to say no to everything.
I would appreciate you not try to characterize my arguments. I can do that of my own accord.
We could hear what this guy's actual final argument is, though, because I'd like.
So, are you going to let him speak?
I don't care what energy does. What is energy?
The ability to do work.
That's what energy does.
That's what it is. It's the ability to do work.
That's not.
Yeah, Leo's describing it as a potentiality to.
Clearly, he's not satisfied with that answer. So maybe we can go a little deeper here.
If you go to a scientist and you ask them what energy is, all honest scientists are going to tell you we don't know.
Except that they don't. I've asked them. They say what I say. Energy is the ability to do work. Energy is the intrinsic potential contained in degrees of freedom in systems to actualize other degrees of freedom.
Why are you trying so hard to put God somewhere?
What is the source of energy, and what is energy itself?
Well, see,
it's not the ability to do work.
Well,
that is what energy is.
Kind of moving the goalposts too.
The problem is we're thinking about energy as if it's an object. It's not a thing you can point at and say that's an energy.
It's not in the physical world.
And well, of course it is.
Well, if it's in the physical world, then what physical object is? What is the concreteness of energy?
That's the thing. It's conceptual. It's a way of describing a system, but it isn't a physical thing. It's much like kinetic energy. It's like asking, what is kinetic energy? It's the energy contained in the motion of some system. But then saying, but that doesn't tell me what it is. That tells me what it does. No, that's what it is. Kinetic energy is the energy contained in the motion of some system or object.
Yes, Jason, I've taken many of science classes. I love science, but
you're saying the things that you're saying don't seem to comport with that.
That's fine, because you think of energy as this figured out thing that we have. Matter of fact, you can even go to what is the PBS show that talks about all this?
PBS Space Time with Matt O'Dowd.
Go look at what
I watch those videos frequently.
Right. Go look at what energy is. We don't know what it is. It is based. No, we don't.
Okay.
All we know is there is something there.
So why don't we know what energy is?
Well, I want to take a different tact, and so even if we did concede we don't know what energy is, you're assuming that science can never know what it is, and that's why I said because you're like.
Nothing I said assume that.
Okay.
No, I was talking about the fact that we take scientific knowledge as being this, that we have all these different answers to, and we don't even know what the fundamentals are. We have no idea we have no idea where the strong force or the weak force comes from, or
Yeah, we
why they
do have
are the way
pretty
they are.
good ideas
Well,
about that,
we
actually. Yes.
model them
Yeah,
and
I
model
agree with
outcomes.
you.
We
So
don't
what are
have
you,
to
but
know
what are
where they.
models?
What's your
So what are
what's your
models?
conclusion to
Well,
that?
they're
I'll grant
They're
you what you're saying.
descriptions.
What's your conclusion to that line of reasoning?
No, the reason in asking these is the confidence in science, as if it's this way that we can know things more than we
Yes,
can
an
know what goes
attachment
on
to
in
certainty.
reality.
Everybody wants to have certainty over the future.
Well,
That's why people
we
like
can
astrology.
Science deals with reality.
But we can
Religion
try
doesn't
and
deal
make
with
Tell
reality.
yourself, but
better
you're
certainty
wrong.
of
Religion
outcomes.
not deal
But
with reality.
What
Yeah,
was that?
science
My
doesn't
stuff
deal
is
with certainty of
more in
outcomes. That's
accordance with
correct.
reality. Yet people who claim to like science don't agree with what I've said. So
I mean,
that
is
can't be true.
science the best methodology that we have to explore our world and to understand our
Not
world?
by a long
Physical
shot.
world,
Then what-
I think.
then what
what's the
is
better
it?
one?
Yeah, what's the better one?
Traditional pramanas and
What do you mean by
Traditional
traditional?
what?
religion.
Traditional what?
What did you
Traditional
say?
methods of proof, which are called pramanas, which you could theoretically do without being in a religion, but I don't know how you would, because it's
You mean,
very hard.
what
You
is
need
it?
God to
Puranas.
do it.
Puranas, like the Puranas.
No,
That's
not
what you're
the
saying.
Puranas. Those are
Okay.
derivative latter-day texts.
Can you
Okay.
spell that for me, Jen?
Pramanas. So different schools accept different pramanas. So the problem we're basically at this nexus of conflict where nobody's willing to commit to a pramana because they see it as a weakness. But it's not a weakness
I don't
because
even know what that means.
I
Clearly.
swear to God, this is like so wacky. Sometimes, Jen, I agree with you sometimes, but sometimes you go off on this deep end, which I'm like, I just cannot accept.
I don't know how to even fathom.
Anytime somebody questions things that they think that we know for certain about science, this is what we get.
I'll
You're way
grant
off
you
on the
everything
deep
you've
end.
said about science, but I'm going to say it's because of Christians that this happened. There was never a problem in knowing these transcendentals before your religion, so I just want you to know that.
That's
So,
cool.
Jen-
That's
Accept that
fine.
fact.
I don't deny that the Catholic Church had an absolute hold on knowledge and philosophy and science at a time, but that has nothing to do with now. It
Absolutely does. In the
it
time
doesn't
before
because
Pythagoras, everybody
it-
just took God for granted because you needed to have the transcendental God to do
so
math.
you think because in the past
What?
And then the
they
Christians were
thought
like,
that
well,
they
actually,
were
God is this like volcano demon.
okay,
And then
but
it was
you
like,
think
think
that's a little
because in the
actually, I don't want to
past-
believe in that. And then it was like, oh, that was what I
So-
wanted to say with my opening before, but I won't get a chance because my thing
So
crashed.
you
or whatever.
think
But
in
yeah,
the
anyway.
past, because they controlled the knowledge of philosophy and science, that it's still like that today?
Do you have any reason to believe otherwise? I mean, look
Absolutely,
how
I
much atheism there is.
I absolutely. It's
Atheism
not
is
just
not the
because
fault of
of
Christianity.
that would be because of fundamentalists.
Oh yeah, right. Prove that. You
It
cannot
would be
prove
because of
that.
I
fundamentalists.
can prove that.
Jen,
Why do we
Jen.
consistently? Why did so many people? And I'm not targeting anybody in here. It's just a general trend I see. So many people say, "Well, you can't prove that." When was it established that something needs to be proven before it can be accepted as true or probably true?
Amen.
Probably a prudent move to prove stuff before assuming they're true.
Not
don't you think?
necessarily. If you hear
Pluralism.
wait, hold on here. I have an
Relativism.
example. I have an example here. If you see me walking down the street and you hear it jingling in my pocket, is it reasonable to make an assumption that there are keys in my pocket?
No.
You
Could be
don't know.
changed.
You can't prove that there's keys. It could be something else, but it's reasonable to say, yeah, that could be keys. It's probable that there are keys in my pocket. That's reasonable, isn't it? I mean, would anybody in here deny that's reasonable?
No, I think it's reasonable.
I think it's reasonable.
Exactly. You don't have to prove something to demonstrate that it's reasonable or probable or plausible.
But you and I understand that you and I have a better understanding of epistemology and, being
Then why do atheists
probabilistic.
continually ask Christians to prove that God exists?
I don't think a
I don't.
Christian
Because
needs
they
to
know
prove
that they
that God
can,
exists.
and they want to feel smart.
I ask for evidence, not proof.
What is
I ask for somebody to demonstrate. At least I say, is there anything that you think might convince me that it's more probable or more likely that God exists than not?
Nope.
And if I see that, I feel that maybe not like right away because I don't think at least largely, like maybe with like really simple stuff, like wait, who won the football game on Sunday? I thought it was the Buccaneers. Oh no, it was the Packers. Oh okay. Like we can correct ourselves on small stuff like that immediately, but with more fundamental stuff like this, it takes us time before we change our minds. I think anyway.
Will,
I got a question for Jen when we've got a sec, by the way.
Will, this is why I lean more and more towards Calvinism every day.
You're welcome.
You got a new adherent, Will. Someone's coming.
Yeah, I do want
my mission to normalize Calvinism is going well.
Wow.
I could never have been a Calvinist, but then again, I was also a Catholic, so no.
I do want to answer J Mike's question. I mean,
yeah.
Oh wait, whoa,
Yeah,
J Mike's. Oh,
yeah. He was talking about. He said that I am talking more about the ontology of energy itself, but actually, I was wanting a more thorough definition of what energy is, other than that which does work. So it wasn't just about the ontology, but if somebody has an ontology, I would be all open to hear that.
Also, send in love, J Mike.
But J Mike's saying proof is mathematical.
Yeah, that is technically true.
In the rigorous sense, yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would agree with Leo that generally that we're not talking about like absolutist proof. I think Eddie and I are in agreement that we're talking about probabilistically, like what's the most in science works on that capacity. We're not even saying, like Leo was like, oh, at one point we didn't think that we could reduce atoms down any further, but until we did.
Yeah.
But before then we didn't even know atoms existed. So we didn't know atoms existed. Then we discovered atoms existed, but we couldn't reduce them down. Then we discovered that we could reduce them down. We pyramid in, so our knowledge is getting greater and greater, but it doesn't mean that we have ultimate knowledge, but we're just getting better and better. That is the value of this methodology, and frankly, peer review helps to support that. And I know that Jen disagrees with that.
Can I answer Eddie's question really quickly? How I like to define energy is the potential for some systems to instantiate action. So when somebody asks me what is energy, what I'll often say to them is, if you have a system and that system can do a thing, anything, something. If you have some system and that system can do something, the system has energy.
That's fine. Yeah, that's
okay. I got a question for Jen when we got a sec.
Yeah, I'm gonna let. Yeah, you.
Are you gonna try to?
Yeah, no, go.
Yeah,
now?
Jason.
Well, I've got a question about them. That's all.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to let him answer. I want to let him ask her that, but real quick, Jason. Yeah, I'm with you 100%, and I'm definitely in the probabilistic, and that's why I said I didn't want it to seem like I was attacking science. It's just when we have like hard empiricists and things like that who rely only on science. That's why I have an issue. But I'm with you all the way. I think we absolutely can have a probabilistic confidence in scientific findings.
Hey man, I just want to say one thing. I like Will and Eddie. Anytime Will and Eddie come on, they're like my favorite Christians. Like because both I enjoy talking to both you guys. So
it's not.
I like you too.
Yeah.
I do like you, Jason. Even though
so Jen, this what the chat insists on calling piranhas, the paramas, right? The apparently, from what I'm reading, and do correct me if I'm wrong, but the three central ones are perception, inference, and the word, meaning the testimony of past or present reliable experts. So I want to know how that meshes with saying that sort of peer review. Isn't that the testimony of reliable experts?
Oh, the comments are great.
No, it's the finger wagging, hypercriticism, gangbang Socratic method of midwits. No,
it's not finger wagging. Peer review is just simply doing a replication.
Here's the thing about peer review is, guess what?
Jen, can I finish, please?
I'm sorry, but peer review is self-evident. You don't need to defend peer review. It's self-evident, but it's not sufficient to get you anywhere. But please go ahead.
How's it?
I'm in my position.
Jen, you made me blush.
I wasn't trying to straw man anything. No, it's the replication of studies, so people do it. It's not finger wagging. It's just if someone gets a different result, someone gets a different result. They don't say you should have gotten this result. All of that is compiled together to make a consensus on what the outcome is going to be. It's not saying, hey, you did wrong. It's just people get different results, and that's fine.
All peer review is a mechanism that we've created in order to produce a standard by which we accept something to have more validity.
Yeah, correct.
I'd agree with that. Yep.
Yeah, science changes when
That was
have more
actually very
evidence,
well put.
like religion.
And science, and typically, science in general has tried to work extremely hard. And again, it's not perfect. I know that there are flaws in peer review. Nobody is saying there aren't flaws in peer review, just like there aren't flaws in scientific methodologies. Well, it's an attempt to try to make it as objective as possible in terms of anonymity of reviews, in terms of like multiple journals all over the place that aren't reliant upon each other. So again, it's not perfect. You can have, although as a scientist, I don't see this so much, but I guess you can have like biased reviews, like somebody can figure out who the person is and provides a slam review when actually the science is decent.
Or just a terrible study can make it through peer review, like the Wakefield study. It just made it through.
Can I make a point to that really quickly?
But that's good, because once that study came out and everybody examined it and started to scrutinize it, we're like, oh shit, this is fucked.
It should never have been published. Yeah.
This is a horrible study. Yeah.
Can I make a point to what you said, Jason, really quickly?
Yeah, please.
So I agree with what you said, but the thing is, and that it seemed that you were maybe even alluding to this, is that if there is something going on in that interferes with the honest method, with the honest practice of the methodologies of science, it is assuming that it is recognized as being there, it is very, very swiftly weeded out and corrected for. Very, very quickly. We see this all the time in science. It comes out 4 years later that say, maybe Science Magazine or Science Journal, the journal Science, published something, and 3 years later it comes out that the methodologies are completely flawed. They'll immediately pull the paper. Immediately.
Remember the concept of cold fusion? Does anybody remember cold fusion?
Yes.
Where those guys wrote a paper about cold fusion and they got cold busted on it. Like they did. It was just bullshit. And so, yeah.
And many of the papers like the journal Science and Nature Journal and the most reputed academic presses on the planet have very frequently, well, I shouldn't say very frequently, but when it happens and they know, okay, we know that somebody submitted something, but the methodologies were flawed. We didn't catch it. I mean, we're not perfect. Nobody's saying peer review is perfect, that it establishes truth, that it establishes fact. All it does is say, look, we've taken what this person said, we've done everything to our ability to reproduce their experiment, to even change some of the variables to see if that changes the outcomes. And what we have found is that our conclusions match very, very closely to what the original author got. It seems to be the case that the conclusions of this research are accurate. We have good reasons to believe that it's accurate. That's all peer review does, is increase the probability of accuracy.
And they do it in engineering as well. In engineering, they have something called an RFC, or request for comment, and it's basically when somebody discovers something, an engineering principle, they put up a request for comment and basically show it for everybody to try out. Once it passes request for comment, or everybody's basically chipped in trying to either improve it or disprove it or just show it's bullshit or whatever, it then goes into an ISO standard, like International Standards Organization.
Hold on. There's a major issue there, and that's in the field of psychology, which also incorporates neuroscience. There have been a lot. Matter of fact, there was a meta study done that shows that over 50% of the peer-reviewed articles that were submitted were not replicated and not true. So we do have, because now there is so much funding that goes along with being peer reviewed. Now, I'm not going against the peer reviewed process, but we have a lot of up and coming scientific fields in the soft sciences and other areas where peer review process has been absolutely abysmal.
Well,
So-
let me.
Yeah.
I'm going to say something on that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No,
Well-
and the last thing to that is I want to hear Jen say Socratic gangbang again.
Y'all are just thirsty on Maine tonight. Dang.
It was hilarious. No,
It was pretty
it was
funny.
hilarious.
But the only thing I want to say is that I
You love
Not
the
real- not
scientific
really.
method, don't you? You love peer review. You really
No,
love it.
I think it's a good thing, yeah.
It gives you
I
a
think
warm
it's a good
feeling
thing.
in the subcockles of your heart, doesn't it?
Peer review me, baby.
I do
Oh
think
my
it's-
God.
I want to peer review the
God.
fuck out of you.
don't be slamming on psychology. Like, 'cause
He is wearing it out tonight.
I'm gonna tell you-
No, he's not
Subtopicals,
slamming on
Socratic
psychology.
I
He's just-
know.
Come on, Jason.
He's being hyperbolic.
I'm just joking.
You're in a
Jason.
fight mode today, aren't you?
No,
Wow.
no. Hey man,
Hold
I'm
on.
the only. I'm telling you,
Jason, I
I
love psychology. I suffer from mental illnesses myself.
I am probably the only person on here that has publications in developmental psychology. Like I have
Rock
multiple psychology pubs but what only thing I will say is, yeah, you're right. There was a major study that came out about reproducibility that was for psychological studies. But that issue of reproducibility is not just an issue in the field of psychology. It's an issue across the board. And there's been a lot of writings on this issue of replicability, reproducibility, and the fact that science itself comes out with meta studies that examine that reproducibility is a testament in and of itself to address that
I
issue.
agree.
And I would agree with
love
you, Eddie. We
psychology.
need more replication studies.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I would agree with you.
I
Totally.
love the only reason I brought up psychology is because I love psychology.
Yeah.
I have mental illnesses I suffer from, and my younger brother is schizophrenic. So I've been through so many different studies and meta studies. Will, that's cool as shit, man. I like that.
Oh, you're so cool.
Wow.
Will. Swear to
Oh
God.
man, I can't be as cool as
I'm
Will.
gonna
What
do
the
that. I gotta
hell?
get a second camera.
Psychology is close to my heart. That's the only reason I brought
Hey,
it up.
okay. Last thing I'll say is that if anybody's interested,
Much respect, man. That's awesome.
Only reason I'm published in some of those journals is because my wife she's a psychologist, and so I like writing her coattails. So I do her analysis. and
Stop
she,
being humble.
Oh, the nepotism
being
going on here is just insane.
Being humble.
but you know what? If you're really interested, she's got a Netflix documentary on.
Yeah, I was going to
babies.
ask what that was.
Awesome.
What was that?
Yeah, it's the series is called Babies, and it's a 10-part series on the development of children and babies, and it's like an intersection between like parents' perspectives on babies and science. And so my wife does work. I think it's like she's in part 2. There's 2 parts, 2 5-episode parts. She's on the part 3. But what she does, she studies babies, and she puts EEGs caps on babies' heads and looks at brain waves of the babies, and it's fascinating
muted,
stuff.
Leo.
Yeah, no, I'm playing RuneScape, and this game is really fucking pissing me off right
Hey,
now.
whatever. I'm just bragging about my life.
I tell you what,
Jason, are you in
the minute you think the
experimental?
Brits can do something right, and they fuck it up.
Are you an experimental?
Oh, look, I've known that from the day I was
No.
born, mate.
Okay.
I'm Australian.
I'm a data scientist, and I do climatology, but I do machine learning with climatology, and her work is like signal processing, EEG signals. And so I'm like, oh, how can I apply machine learning models to understand? Because remember, they put the little cap on there, and they are measuring the signals and the parts of the brain.
Which one
they're
are
measuring.
EEG? Is that the outer or the inner?
The outer. It's not like an
outer,
yeah.
Okay.
And so they measure those signals, and they do stuff to the baby. So they they scare the baby. They look at the emotional
Assholes.
reactivity, and then they measure the brain waves, and then
Well, that's the
use-
problem with replicability.
Yeah.
And
Linoleum.
there you go.
What I wanted to say was that, and I'm not against peer review at all, but when people use peer review as a hammer to say because this is peer review, therefore you're wrong,
That's where I have a problem with.
That's fallacious.
Well, it just provides us higher standard. Like in general, peer-reviewed studies are at a higher.
I would be in my
really.
opinion,
Have you seen some of the stuff? Eddie, don't do that to me, man. I can't tell you. The Poe's law says that you could actually believe that, man. Like seriously.
In my opinion,
the claim itself to simply state you're wrong because this is my position is peer reviewed and yours isn't.
Yeah, that's fallacious.
That's fallacious. Just because
Yeah,
you
Leo's
have to
right.
be able
That's-
to evaluate and or analyze the claim that is being made, and you have to defeat that claim based
Right.
on its central point. You can't just simply say, "Nope, you're wrong. My position is peer reviewed and yours isn't. So therefore."
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. But if you're one person presenting peer-reviewed studies and the other person is presenting something they found on the Flat
you have to
Earth
defeat the central
website,
Isn't it
point.
supposed to be about the actual argument, though? If
Exactly.
we're talking
You have to
about
defeat the central
actual
point.
logic,
Well, that's
and
true.
stuff,
That's
one
true.
has a
All that
higher
on peer
probability
review
of being.
is not
Correct.
It's not about probability. I reject the premise of the probability being a thing in
on
determining
what basis?
anything.
So this doesn't make any
Bayesian-
sense.
There's no precedent.
Yeah, this
to
doesn't make
accept
sense to
Bayesian
me.
statistics.
It does,
I
because
reject
if
Bayesian
hold on,
statistics
I have an
because there's
analogy
no
for you.
precedent to accept them on.
I have
I
an
never
example.
used them. They're crap.
I have an
Does it
example.
involve driveways, Will?
No, it doesn't involve driveways.
Okay,
That was a
cool,
good
go ahead.
analogy, by the way. No, if you have 30 people who have all done one thing and they found that to be true, right? That's essentially peer review, right? They've replicated it. They've tested
No. Peer review is a very
No.
because peer review is not just somebody that tries to
not
do
talking
the
about
same thing you
details.
did.
This is an
It's
analogy,
well,
right?
yes,
All right.
but you asked how it's not peer review, and in order to understand why it's not, we're gonna have to
Hold
look at the
on.
details.
You gotta let me finish my statement, right? Okay. You have 30 people who have all tested something, right? We've all held a lighter and dropped it, right? So they say that we've dropped a lighter. A lighter can be dropped. And then one person has the light says, nope, you can't drop a lighter. Unless you've tested the fact that you can drop a lighter and it not be fallen, you can't say that simply because the 30 people said that if something happened, the one person's wrong. You have to
Well,
test
yeah, I agree with that.
and replicate their method, right? You have to
Of
analyze
course.
and you have to attack their central point. You have to replicate what they can be. You have to prove that what they're doing cannot be replicated, and then you can say that your peer-reviewed version of it is more reliable than theirs.
But there's a level of probability in terms of, just listen to me, that if I write a paper and I submit my paper to a journal and that journal editor is going to send it out to reviewers who are expert in that field, and they're going to read that and they're going to scrutinize my work. They're going to, and people who are experts in that particular area, they're going to scrutinize that work. And then that paper is going to go out, and then thousands of other scientists are going to read that paper and comment on it and potentially cite it. And so if that paper is highly cited and it passes review, that has a higher probability of being true than somebody who just writes a bunch of crap. It's
Well,
that's
there was a
Now,
broader.
I'm not
point.
saying it's absolutely, the knowledge is absolutely
to be able
true.
to test it. To be
Yes.
Yes,
Here's what- here's the thing
none
with-
of you guys publish in any of this work.
Here's the thing with
So-
peer review, because
I'm not publishing. I'm simply stating the method by which you can claim something to be false.
I
You
want to
have-
hear
I'm
what Bubbles has to say, though. It's because the metaphysics is rigid. You can't change the metaphysics. That's a problem in science.
I'm not talking about
I'd love to hear
What are
from
you
Bubbles,
talking
though.
about?
Yeah, because
A lot of people can have different metaphysical views
Yawn.
in
It's
science.
probabilistic
so,
up the yin yang. You can't
so
question
what?
Bayesian.
But it being what nobody said that.
metaphysically rigid. You
But
can't question
still,
Big Bang
there was
either.
a
Go ahead,
broader
Bubbles.
point to what Will said that I wanted to address quickly before we moved on. Peer review isn't just like somebody trying to do what somebody else did. It's highly
Right.
controlled, very, very highly controlled, and it's done by relevant and highly experienced researchers in that field.
And when Will
How's
was
the highly
talking
controlled?
about they have to do it the same, the paper will have a methodology of the experiment, how
That's what that
exactly
means,
they carried
replicate.
out the experiment.
hmm
Well,
And
yeah,
oftentimes
yeah.
they try to
Not include
change
that in my
certain
analogy.
variables to figure out if there are more confounding variables that the original
If
researchers
you're,
missed.
if you're replicating an experiment, how is
Yeah,
that
like-
not included in my analogy?
Don't confuse peer review with replication. or
Yeah,
reproducibility.
the replication is an aspect
Okay.
of peer review, but it's peer review isn't just bare replication.
Yeah,
Here's
don't
my-
confuse the various
Right.
crises and how we understand the natural world.
Here's my problem with peer review, because it clearly hints at elitism. Because like
What do
when
you
say-
mean by that?
What do you mean?
Because the word peer it means somebody with a higher authority.
No, it doesn't. It means
No,
equal.
it means equal, peer, somebody who's also an expert in this field, just
your
like you are.
peer is somebody who is at your level. That's what peer means. So if I'm in a community of my peers, they are at the same level I am, Bubbles.
Yeah, but it's still this elite group. You're still.
Well, what do you mean by
it's
elite?
not.
Like when you say the word
well,
elite,
okay,
what do
for
you mean
example-
by that?
Peers exist, which is absurd.
Yes.
Peers don't really exist.
Do you know Michael
Oh,
Foucault?
sure
What do you mean?
Do you know?
No, but Jen doesn't have any peers. That's what she means.
Do you know
I'm
Michael
not saying
Foucault?
that's unique to me, by the way.
Of course
you
you
told
have
me
peers.
before
Everybody
that,
has
that your
peers.
expertise is par none. Nobody has the knowledge that
You have more precepts than the Christians. That's the
I
thing,
don't
it's
even
like,
know what that means.
this isn't
I don't know what that
really-
means either.
If you all think
Welcome,
the facts are
Pat.
unvalidated,
Hey,
Been
Pat.
in the chat for like an hour.
I have another scientist in the room that can back me up. So
Former scientist. I'm an anthropologist.
you're
That's assuming he backs you up, Jason.
I
You'd
could, yeah,
never
that's
know.
true. Yeah,
Peer
that's
review.
true. He yeah, that's true. He's good.
So this thing about peers, everybody has to have peers in whatever field they're working in. You will.
Yes.
And
But if
will
you
be people, even if they disagree with you completely or agree, they're still peers. They're just simply people doing the same work on the same field that you are. That's all.
Yeah, but then you're stuck with the conundrum. Who is the first peer?
What do you mean first peer? Like, so let me give you an example. So Sean Carroll is a theoretical physicist. So is Leonard Susskind. Neither one really has like more authority than the other. They're peers. They're both relevant researchers in the same field. They're peers.
Do you know Michael
okay,
Foucault?
we get it. We get it. You don't need to keep re-explaining it. We get it.
Do you know Michael Foucault?
Well, I mean, Bubbles said there's no such thing as peers, so I don't, we're just explaining what
I
peers are,
agree.
so hopefully.
I agree, and it seems like you can't even face that possibility. So
Yeah,
it's
'cause
like, okay, well,
that's
that's
like-
a precept.
What is it? I don't even know what that means. Are you saying that like
Yeah,
professionals? Are you saying that professionals don't have other professionals that are also in that field?
Well, here's the thing. Do you think professionals in government have other professionals in government?
I don't know what you mean. Like, what professionals in government? I'm just
Do you think-
lost.
Do you mean the legislative bodies, or
Do you think they have some forbidding knowledge that we don't?
No,
Then the peers don't exist.
I don't know. That's a
You're-
non
you know where
sequitur.
this
That doesn't
forbidden?
follow.
You're
I don't think
feeling-
any knowledge is forbidden, Bubbles. There's no forbidden. What's
That is-
forbidden?
One of the
you're-
most
you're
naive
appealing
things you've ever said, Mark, and that's saying a lot.
Sorry.
You're-
Sorry, what
you're-
was that, Jen? I'd
It's
love to
one
hear
of
you.
the most naive things you've ever said, and that's
Well, what do you
saying a
mean by
lot.
forbidden? Like nuclear weapon codes or something? Is that what you're talking? I honestly have
are you
no-
saying that if I go to the library and check out a particular book, that like the FBI is going to come and arrest me because
Right.
Oh no, you can't learn about the advances of molecular biology. That's forbidden knowledge. You're under
Most
arrest.
forbidden
Like, it's,
knowledge
like
is
I don't.
mind control, if that clears it up at all.
Forbidden knowledge is mind control.
Most of it, yeah.
I don't even know. I'm sorry.
Oh, I
We're
guess
saying
we
stuff
were gonna
here, and
say you
I
don't
don't know what it
means,
means.
right?
We're
Yeah,
about
I
to
don't know. What
create-
that means.
I'm
Just
lost.
Stop
Ben.
reminding
Yeah.
us that you don't know what I'm talking about. It's
How about you just like
I don't know what
specify
you're
what you
talking about.
mean then? I mean,
Does anybody
Yeah.
know Michael Foucault here?
like you talking about Michael Foucault, who developed Foucault's pendulum?
No. Oh yeah, that one.
Well, what about him?
Do you know what he said about science?
Why does it matter what he said about science?
It's because this is what it is about. And
What
Well,
Foucault's
wait,
right.
wait. Are you saying this one person is right and everything else is wrong?
No, I'm saying his comment.
Are you
about-
appealing to his authority?
No, I'm appealing to his statement.
What did he
Hey,
say?
but how do you know that his statement is like relevant or accurate or meaningful?
Because that's what you're doing.
What what do you mean? That's what I'm doing. What am I
When
doing?
you're appealing to peers, you're appealing to a power.
No.
Don't you love how
Yes.
there's always a two-step? There's always a stronger statement, and then they can always back it so that it's a weaker statement. It's like, no, we're not.
Who's
Well,
they?
the Big Bang's not really about the beginning of the universe. No, we're not really making statements of certitude.
Yeah.
It's like it really sounded a lot like that.
Hey,
That
we have
seems
we
like
have a
really
celebrity
off-topic
here.
again.
You like
That's-
presupposing these things without saying you're presupposing these things.
I'm what is being presupposed here?
You're
Hold on,
assuming
When
we
you're
have
saying
a
PR,
celebrity
you
here. We need to acknowledge Pat.
Yeah,
because
can we I want to hear what Pat's got to say.
Pat's going to be on with Richard Carrier. So
Ooh, well
Sweet.
done, Pat.
yeah,
Well, Pat recently did a
sad
thing on
repetition.
creation myths and stuff, which was fascinating. Check it out; it was really good.
he's fixing to take that next step. Look at you, Pat.
Richard
Thanks.
Carrier.
He sounds so excited.
Yeah, well, I am excited. And it's actually Richard Carrier,
Oh,
Dr. Josh,
shit.
and Eddie, so it's going to be pretty nice.
Oh, sweet.
Awesome.
I was trying
but-
to keep me out of it. I wanted
But I
to
am
give you
the I am the
I wanted to
weak,
give
I am
you
the weak link in that
light.
chain. So no, see, this is I kind of want to just echo something Jason said in the form of peer review to back up his position. Just kidding. Peer review is really important though, because there's just as much, well, at least in my experience, there's just as much questioning and rejection of assertion in a peer review model as there is general acceptance. Sometimes, particularly in the field I'm in now, anthropology and archaeology, I write a site report on an excavation that I'm participating in. There's really not going to be anything, no way to confirm unless there's someone comes in after my work. But archaeology is by its very nature a destructive process. You reveal something, you can't put it back, or generally you can't put it back to how it was before you discovered it. So your interpretation is largely the only opinion that is used. But then what happens is your work is reviewed in similar or contrasted compared to other excavations, other interpretations to see whether or not if your methodology is sound. But within science, there's a lot less interpretation. The hard sciences. I'm the first one to admit archaeology is not a hard science. It's science adjacent. We use principles and techniques and methodologies that are found in science, and we do have some heavy pillars in archaeology that are very scientifically based, particularly with chemical analysis, use of radar and ground penetrating radar and things like that are actually very very reliant on certain disciplines within science. But science itself is rigorous for different reasons because of its requirement to be predictive. And predictability is the reason your car starts. It's the reason you dial your phone. It's the reason we can launch people into space. It's that reliability is fundamental to not only science's reliability, but the requirement for peer review. A real basic, I love the movie, but if you guys ever watched the movie Hidden Figures, I think it's a great movie recently. They shortened it down a little bit for time, but each calculation for every aspect of a pre-computer moon launch or orbit launch that NASA did was checked by numerous people. People checked and triple checked, quadruple checked. That's a form of peer review within a mathematical. And you know what? Sometimes those found that there were mistakes that the last group did. It was the 6th, 7th, or 8th group in series, and the groups were separated often so that they wouldn't conflate information, just to make sure that these premises are sound. And that's a lot of time what academic rigor within peer review is it's not just people, it's institutions. One institution, they're researching a certain thing, another institution's researching a different thing, but it's in competing. Their theories and what they're kind of cutting edge on is in a slightly different direction than someone else. So when a paper comes up, they go, hey, let's see if these guys are on the right track or these gals are on the right track. If these people have the right thing, then we need to shift course. But until we can show that what they're doing is reproducible, reliable, and gives potential results and a predictability, then they still often continue. That's why we have multiple competing theories that are still being developed in major academic institutions. And yes, it's sometimes competitive, and there's all kinds of egos and stuff involved with it. But for both the scientific method and peer review, we would not be where we are, in my opinion.
I think it kills competition.
I agree.
More than anything.
Ramen.
Ramen, indeed. Yes.
That's
how does it, what were you saying? You said it kills.
How does it kill competition? Competition is what he said.
Because you have these sort of gatekeepers, and like
No.
how Michael Foucault will say, like, for example, for a long time, gay was considered a mental illness, peer reviewed, and
I actually don't think that's true. I'm willing to be corrected on that if I'm wrong, but I don't know if like the academic literature said that so much as just like the general idea, but I could very well be wrong.
And
No,
plus, it's
it
better than
absolutely
what was
was,
previously thought, which was being sort of gay
And
was
it was
possessed
up-
by demons.
And honestly, it was up pretty recently until they actually changed their position on it.
Yeah,
This is
this is
getting
considered.
way-
I mean, gender is. I'm not sure if that's still considered a mental disorder. Who knows?
This is getting way too
Gender?
highbrow for me, so I'm just gonna.
It's definitely not a
Doesn't
mental
Richard
disorder.
Carrier look like Andy Dick?
Oh my god. You just ruined that for me. Thank you.
I googled it and I was like, dude, that's Andy Dick.
That is, you can't do that. You can't. Leave it to the freaking Calvinists, man. You know,
Andy Dick without the drug problem.
I gotta have him on my show with a straight face now. And
Can I respond to something that Pat said? Well, add on to something that Pat said, and I think it helps address the issue that Bubbles raised. And that's that scientists oftentimes develop competing models to explain the same phenomenon. Like, there's plenty of competition in science. Scientists love nothing more than being able to show that their idea is the most plausible explanation over others. And peer review is one tool that a scientist can use to get there. So like peer review is what helps preserve the concept of competition in science.
I mean, and have you ever been to a conference like American Geophysical Union and present? And I'm serious. When I was working on my master's degree, I was there with my advisor. I gave a talk, and one of his other students gave a talk, and she gave a talk. And at the talk, the question and answers, somebody got up and just like seriously tore her, one big time. Like, just said, "You don't know what you're talking about, this, and this." And my advisor got up and he was like, "I just want to comment on what that guy just said, and here's why he's wrong. Blah, 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 blah." It was like battle royal. So this happens all the time in science where people go after each other. And it happens in conferences, and it happens in writing. It happens all over the place. So, and we want and frankly, that's a good thing, you know?
Yes. Anybody who's read like historical, scientific, or even philosophical literature knows the intellect, there's always been steep competition.
Yeah.
In just the realms of intellectuality and academia. These men and women are always butting heads on who's got the better ideas, what supports which idea over another. The idea that there's no competition, I'm sorry, that's just plainly absurd.
Because the only
it is
people who are
plainly.
allowed, here's what's wrong with that. The only people who are allowed to butt heads are people in academia. So
No,
like a random nobody
not true.
out of academia isn't going to be
Excuse
taken
me,
seriously.
Einstein was in a patent office.
And he
That's
was
an
wrong.
anecdote, Mark.
No, he wasn't.
He was wrong.
Yes,
Okay.
And
Yeah,
that's
Einstein didn't know
also
shit,
true.
apparently. Yeah, all right.
Well, one of the most corroborated physical theories humans have ever developed, but he was wrong.
Guess what Tesla said about Einstein?
Okay, dude, why do you keep like appealing to authorities? Like,
Peer
well, this
review
person
should just
said this
be
and
like,
that person said that. It doesn't mean anything.
Tesla
Guess what Big
isn't
Ben
important.
said about
Peer review's
Einstein?
trivial. Peer
What did
review
Yeah,
Tesla-
a lot of
trivial,
people said
guys.
very mean and nasty
No
things
one's
about
gonna
Einstein
deny
because he
peer
developed such an
review.
accurate and
Unprincipled.
demonstrated theory.
All of a sudden, peer
Joke.
review doesn't matter when it's Tesla, huh?
That's
Wait,
not peer review.
hold on. One
Trivial.
person giving their
The fact that
opinions
people
on somebody
talking
else is
about it-
the opposite, like literally the antithesis of peer review, my dude.
So why doesn't Tesla's point count?
Because it's one
What was that
person
look, Will?
sharing an opinion. It's not rigorously corroborated data.
I'm not sure where you're getting at, but okay. Anyways, like I was saying, there isn't. I'm not sure if you guys know Veritasium, the YouTuber.
Veritasium? Yes.
Yeah,
Derek
Veritasium.
Muller?
Recently he had a contest, and it was only until then that we actually see competing ideas. Because for a long time, it seems science is only due to this elite group, and
You still haven't
nobody else
defined what you mean by that.
allowed it to have.
Like, see, this is the thing. These conspiracists will use very vague terminology that doesn't really mean anything. Like, oh, well, these elites, these elitists. Like, what does that mean? Like, that's all they ever do. They don't speak in any definitive terms because they don't have any argument to make. They use very, very vague terminology that could be applied very, very broadly. That doesn't
People
really
who
mean
are
anything.
not from like high education. Like you have to have this
Conspiracy
university
requires agenda. Otherwise, it's not a conspiracy. It's a theory, not a scientific
Well, I'm not
theory.
saying this is a conspiracy, but it's clearly they're killing competition. When you say only people with like this university certificate are allowed to have these competing theories, then you are
Who said
killing
that,
that
though?
pool of competition. No,
Who said,
that's what you're doing.
that, though? No, wait, who said
That's what
that?
you're doing.
Who said you had to have a degree to submit? You don't have to have a degree to submit.
But you are not going to get
technical
funding.
literature.
You are going to be cut out. Statistically,
That's beside the point.
speaking,
That's
you will
beside the
not have the
point.
same
Now you're
chance.
backpedaling. That wasn't
No,
the
I'm
point you
not backpedaling.
made.
Actually,
yes, you did. The point that you made was
I'm
that
not
your point that you made was that somebody isn't allowed to publish work challenging a consensus, or isn't allowed to
I'm
challenge
saying
a
the
scientist
work
say
will not be
they
taken
don't have a
credible.
degree themselves.
Leo-
but that's false. There
Leo,
have
let
been
me-
people that have no degrees that have published in some of the most respected peer-reviewed academic presses
And
that
actually-
exist.
Leo,
Before
let
you
Eddie
say
go.
something,
Okay.
Pat.
Okay,
Oh
good.
no, I just want to say send in love, Eddie. Thank you so very much.
Thanks for
And
coming,
we
Eddie.
are pulling into the
Take it
last
easy, Eddie.
15 minutes
Later, Eddie.
before outros, and that'll take us to hour 3 and beyond. But it has been fun. Pat, you were about to say something, and then we got 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen.
So, just one thing. I understand the gatekeeping allegation, and in some cases, I actually will defend gatekeeping. But when you're talking about academia, I mean, I love the statements people make, like, "Well, you can't do this, you can't do that." I know people who've earned their doctoral degree by publication. It's not always by dissertation and research. Like, that's how Jason did his, right? There are people that get a PhD by publication. They just write a F ton of papers, and then they submit those papers to a body, and they go, you know what? You've shown a mastery in this field. Typically, they have you write kind of an overview of your themes and your research. There's some people who've been doing, quote unquote, self-paced or self-funded or self-directed research for 20 or 25 years who end up getting awarded a terminal degree in a field because of expertise they've demonstrated in that field. Now, sometimes they may have had a master's degree in the field and then later got a PhD through this method. But to say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. I know people that have submitted to peer-reviewed journals without having even mid-level degrees. You know, we have people that have just been excavators for 20 years in archaeology, and they maybe have a bachelor's degree in archaeology, and they're submitting papers because they've earned a certain level of expertise in the field. Now, gatekeeping's good too, because I don't want someone who doesn't have a degree that's certified by a board doing surgery on me either. So gatekeeping can be a way to ensure integrity within a field as well. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, I don't want
minimum standards.
I'm sure if Eddie was here, he doesn't want an engineer building, because that's the field Eddie's going into. Eddie doesn't want an engineer building a bridge who isn't certified in engineering.
Wait, can I ask Bubbles a quick question? It's a very genuine question. Sure. If you needed your head gasket replaced on your engine, would you take it to your local mechanic or your local dentist?
Head gasket? Well, that depends.
Wait, you're saying that if anything, we don't even have to name it. You're saying that something goes wrong with your car and it depends whether you're going to take it to a mechanic over a dentist?
No.
So which would you take it to?
Well, you're presupposing the dentist has no knowledge on fixing.
Wait, I did not. A dentist could have more knowledge than the mechanic. That was not a part of what I asked you. I asked you.
This is what you're trying to avoid.
Something goes wrong. No, what you're trying to do is attach aspects to my argument that I didn't grant. I did not. It doesn't matter. I literally just granted. I literally just granted that the dentist could actually know more about mechanics than the mechanic, but it's irrelevant to the point I'm making. Something goes wrong with your car. Who are you taking it to? Your mechanic or your dentist? This is a very simple close-ended question.
if I know the dentist knows how to fix a head gasket and he's closer,
But
I'll
you
probably
don't
take it.
know.
But you
The
don't
whole
know
point
that.
is you don't
I'm
know.
asking you.
Then
You
tell me.
don't know who
Tell me
knows
your
what
example.
about anything. But
Tell
you know
me.
this guy owns a mechanic store and has owned it for 20 years, and he's still in
Calm
business.
down, Leo.
This
Leo.
guy owns a
Leo, let me
dentistry office.
reply.
He's been in business for 20 years.
Yeah.
Leo.
Your car has broken down.
It's a good
You need to
analogy.
take it to somebody to
Leo.
fix it. And
Leo.
I'm asking you, are
Just
you going
say-
to take it to your dentist or your mechanic?
Just say the dentist does not know how to fix a head gasket.
But that's
Maybe-
not. Why are you
Say
dodging? You're changing the
You're
hypothetical
leaving
I'm
this out of
presenting
your
you.
question because you know
no,
why.
it's not. Do you know how hypotheticals work, my dude?
Yeah, so Bubbles is trying to say, like, you, in a world where you don't know who's right or who has what level of knowledge, and you can just make a choice between two things based upon what your interpretation of their jobs are.
But
Would
this
you
has
choose
to-
the dentist or the mechanic?
This has to
It's very
suspend
simple.
that I have knowledge. This has to suspend that fact that I
You
have
don't have knowledge
No,
in
it
this
doesn't.
hypothetical. You don't
I
have
don't- I
knowledge
don't
in
have-
this hypothetical.
You don't know either
Yes.
person.
If
You
I
don't know
have-
either person. You don't know anything about them.
Correct.
You are just making a choice based upon their profession.
Yeah.
Would you take it to a mechanic or a dentist?
Clearly mechanic, but this is very specific.
Why?
To
But
your
why?
question.
Why,
Very
though?
specific because I
Why?
don't have knowledge. I don't have knowledge.
Yeah, but why would you take it to
Yes.
a mechanic? What is it about a mechanic that gives you the presumption that they do have knowledge about vehicles? Is it that
Leo,
they have degrees and they
there-
work in that
Leo,
field and they do
there's-
this day in and day out every day for decades?
Leo.
So I
there-
think
No,
the
let me
analogy
reply. Let me
the
reply.
analogy extends when we don't know who is right
No,
in this
let me reply.
circumstance, like who actually has the truth.
Let me
In
reply.
one, okay, sure,
Look.
go Bobs.
Look, there's many mechanics. So guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna look through the customer reviews, and that gives
That's
me
fine.
knowledge.
But
So I'm
you're
not-
but you're still conceding
you
that it
have
would
to-
be a
your
mechanic that you're
example
taking it
has
to.
suspend that knowledge.
No, it doesn't. You just conceded that, well, I might figure out which mechanic is better, but you're conceding then that you would be taking it to a mechanic. Why
And
would you
this
take
mechanic
it?
could be a
Why
dentist's,
why
job.
why would you take it to a mechanic over a dentist?
But you're also admitting that this mechanic, if I were to take just randomly, could make things worse.
It doesn't matter to my
This is a
hypothetical.
dumb
You
argument.
granted
But
that
your
you would
example
you
only
granted
works
that you
with
would
specifics.
take your car to a mechanic if something was wrong. Why would you take it to a mechanic? It doesn't even have to be a dentist. Would you take your car to your beautician over your mechanic?
Okay, Leo.
Would you
can I-
take your car to your local grocer? Would you
Look-
take your car to the guy that runs the window at McDonald's over your mechanic? Would you
Leo.
take your car to anyone who's not a mechanic, assuming you have no knowledge about what they know? You don't know how much they know about cars. You're in a completely different place in the world. You know nobody, and your car breaks down. Who are you taking it to? And why are you taking it to that person?
Leo, let's say your neighbor was not a mechanic and he knew how
This
to fix things.
is presenting a
Would you take
hypothetical
it to a
instead of
mechanic
answering
or would
the
you
one I'm
take it to your
presenting to you.
neighbor?
You're
No,
just
you asked me-
dodging.
answer
Yeah,
my
you're just dodging the hypothetical. I just
Answer
asked you
my
a question.
question.
Why
I
are you
answered the
answering it?
question.
Why are you no? You
Why
didn't.
won't
Why
you
are you
answer
answering
mine?
a question with a question?
I already answered your question.
No, you didn't.
I told you I would take it to the
No,
mechanic.
yeah. Why?
Now answer mine.
Why
If-
would you take it to a
if your-
mechanic?
If your neighbor was not a mechanic but knew how to fix the problem, would you take it to a mechanic or would you take it to your neighbor?
I would take it to a mechanic.
You think that's logical?
Yes, I do. That's like asking me, so you know this guy who's been studying medicine for like 30 years and he's like really good. You've watched him do like surgeries on dogs and he knows like he's really good with surgeries on God knows how many different animals. I'm still going to a fucking surgeon at a hospital when I need surgery, bro. I'm not letting the dude who read a bunch of textbooks perform fucking surgery on me. He hasn't demonstrated that he has a technical and nuanced understanding of the field like
That's
somebody
only
with a
because he
degree
exists.
does.
If he does not exist,
And you're
you have
still
no-
not answering my
Can I
question.
give you a
Why
story?
would you take your car to a mechanic over a dentist?
because of supply and demand.
That is not even an answer. That is
It
not
is.
at all an answer.
It is.
How is that an
I
answer?
think Will wants to chip in. Will wants to chip in.
Go
I
ahead.
got a
I'm
funny
just- go for
story.
it.
When I was 17, I had an ingrown toenail. So I
Ooh.
looked on the internet at that time, which was very young. I'm 40, so that was a long time ago.
I wish.
And it said that what does the doctor do? It cuts it out. So what did I do? I took fingernail clippers and I cut it out, and then took complete needle nose pliers and ripped the part out of my skin. And I went to the doctor. Then my dad said, "What are you doing?" I'm pulling out an ingrown toenail. He's like, "No, I gotta take you to the doctor." I went to the doctor. You know what the doctor said? I would have done the exact same thing. It would have just been a lot less painful.
Yeah, I mean, that's great as an anecdote for that particular situation, but you'd have to agree on the whole, you're better off going to the doctor than performing surgery.
That presupposes the doctor. You have to presuppose this mechanic. You have to presuppose these things.
What are you talking about? Presuppose a
to move
doctor?
on to another analogy because we've been battling this back and forth with the mechanic thing, and he's not gonna.
Yeah, he's
not
pretty.
You know how supply and demand works.
Yeah,
and I will
it has
say,
nothing to do with.
not exist,
It has
if the
nothing
mechanic
to
does
do
not
with
exist,
why you would
what
take.
are you going to turn to?
Wait, so I have
guys-
a question. You're like, you have a very, like, it's just the worst headache you've ever had, the worst pain you've ever felt in your life. Are you going to go to the hospital or to the Starbucks?
Are we presupposing this?
Presupposing what? Just answer the question. Are you going
Maybe
to
the guy at the
hospital?
Starbucks is a doctor.
The reason that he's not answering these questions is because he doesn't want to admit that he's going to go to the fucking professionals when he needs
So he's not
help.
going to do it. He's not going to do it.
And
so
so
not gonna do
we
it.
got
we all know
five
it. Thank
more-
you.
We got
You think
5
there's
more.
doctors in the jungle?
We got 5 more minutes left to figure
think
out
Will
if
wanted to
God
chime in.
exists.
Yeah, dudes, I gotta go pull it. I gotta go get rid of an ingrown toenail.
I'm telling you, it's a true story.
No,
I did want
believe
to
you.
say.
I broke my arm.
Amy
I had
can
to
do
fix
it
it by
for you.
myself.
I believe you, but it seems like we're just kind of debating, like, is there a value to formal training and education? I mean, we value formal.
Of course there
Of course, there's a value.
Does a degree mean something?
Yes.
There's
Yeah,
a lot
degree
of
means
agreements,
something.
Absolutely.
So you would rather go to a
on
person with a
this
bachelor's
stream, but
degree
that
in
one really
mechanics
takes the
than a
cake.
person who has 30 years experience fixing cars? No,
No, I'm saying that there is a value.
I didn't know
to
that places
formal
offer
education.
bachelor's degree in
There is a
auto
value.
mechanics.
Sure they do.
You know what he means, Leo.
Mechanical engineering.
That's not auto mechanics.
I
You can get an
think
associate's degree in auto mechanics. I don't know if
Yes,
they
you
still
can.
bachelor's or not. But what I'm just saying, would you rather take it to a guy who has an associate's degree in auto mechanics or a guy who has dropped out of school at 12 and has 30 years fixing cars? I would take it to the guy. Who
I
dropped out
would
at
take
12
it to
and
either because I would
Can
expect
you get
either
a
to be
doctorate
qualified.
in auto mechanicking?
No.
I don't know.
Yeah,
No, but
some things are
These papers
trades
don't mean
in
shit.
our society,
Exactly.
which has a lot of experiential value, but some things that you gain more capability and knowledge through, like, essentially apprenticing, which is what you're doing with formal education. You've got experts in a
No.
particular area. That's true. No, it's
Classroom work has nothing to do with experience. As a
What'd you
business
say?
owner, classroom work, unless you're talking to like doctorate fields where you have to do internships, it's mandatory for your degree, means nothing.
Yes, it does.
Nothing compared to actual experience in the work field.
That's
As
not.
a
Yes,
small
it
business owner
does.
myself, I would hire someone with experience over someone with a degree all day long.
Wait, I have a question.
That's how programming works too.
If I gave you a particular set of values, Will, and I asked you to calculate the acceleration of this object, how would you go about doing that?
Using math.
You know,
Yeah. So when we teach that to physics students, that's not valuable.
Right, physics is not a
To teach
is
them
not
the
a
basic tools
practical-
for solving problems.
I constantly work with students on how to appropriately structure code. And I can tell you what, you could be somebody who's like, I've never been in a class myself and I'm a programmer, and I can look at your code and I could be like, it's spaghetti code. You learned this on your own, but you didn't actually learn how to write it in the correct way because you didn't have anybody showing you how to do it. Now, does it work? Okay, but does it work the most efficient way possible? Is it accurate? Like there's a value to be having somebody who's gone through it to show you how to do something. I mean, I don't understand that this is not crazy idea.
And you constantly see people program procedural code without understanding object-oriented
work
code.
over actual real-world experience.
But you say real-world experience, like I could go, like, as an example, in a lab setting, I have students where they're going through exercises and we're showing them how to do certain things. That, in a sense, is providing them with applied experience that they're going to go then take and go out into the world and do. That's not so dissimilar from a so-called
Like I said, there may
internship.
be specific fields where classroom work is valuable, but there are
Okay,
a lot
all
of
right.
fields, the majority of fields, I would
Okay,
argue,
okay, great,
where
okay.
classroom experience is
Yeah.
actually a waste of time.
But even in degrees, you can get exemptions for previous knowledge. Like if you've worked in a field for a
test
certain
out.
amount of time,
Yeah,
that they will acknowledge
Not in
that
the US.
experience.
The reason
Oh well,
why-
over here they do that.
Yeah, they do in the United States all the fucking time.
Experience degrees are diploma mills, and they don't
Wait,
count for
No. You're misunderstanding me. What I'm saying is, if you do a degree and you've worked in a certain field that it's associated with that degree, you might get exemptions on units that they just go, yes, you have enough knowledge if you can demonstrate you have that knowledge.
Sure, you can test out of them.
Yeah, that's what we
You
said.
can pell them out.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's textbook knowledge. It's not real world.
Well,
Yeah, but
It's
you're
not
assuming that
knowledge,
textbooks,
it's not
you're
real world
presupposing
knowledge.
that textbooks can't have
Right, the
value.
test
Yeah,
is based on the
exactly.
textbook.
You're always going to have your
Based on real world
outliers.
knowledge.
You're always going to have people who learn something on their own and are the master of it. They learned it all on their own. They self-taught. They're very good at it. But in general, I think usually you want to go with the people who do have that degree and that experience, but not always.
I mean, it's because we're barely
It's very
getting
valuable.
Change the
programming
battery pack.
schools. Like
All
during
right.
the 80s, there was no
Will's
programming
argument
schools.
ran out of battery. It ran out of battery.
Will ran out of gas.
He could pray for. He could pray for it. Oh well, there he did. He must have prayed for it.
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
I mean, prior
Sorry,
to
Will.
prior to the 90s, there wasn't any programming schools really. Now we have all these programming.
Yes, there
schools.
was.
What? That's not true.
What do you don't know any
Talking
dude?
about?
Do you know anything about what Microsoft was doing in the
that's
80s,
not
my
about
dude?
Microsoft was made in a garage.
That has nothing to do with the question I asked you.
Which
Do you
means
have any
it wasn't
idea?
about
Do you
skill.
have any idea what Microsoft was doing in the
Coding's
80s?
been around for like since the 70s.
Coding's been around since
Yes.
like
Yes.
the
That's
early
what-
early
All
21st
right, guys.
century.
Oh well, because I was made in a garage. Not really.
Like
but it worked.
Apple.
This is just
McAfee-
garage logic.
Like
I think I
McAfee
was
used to be a
made
coke
in the-
dealer when he
I
made
think it
his
was
program.
made in the
John
Amy
McAfee is an
said-
interesting character. Yes. Yes,
Amy's
he
been
is.
doing
Or
a
used to be.
Socratic
Steve Jobs used
gangbang.
to do shrooms. That doesn't
Oh, my.
mean that he wasn't like kind of a
Mhm.
smart guy. Like,
No, I'm
what is
saying
your
he didn't-
point?
He didn't go to school. Like prior to like the
So?
80s, there wasn't.
Aaron
really-
Rod didn't go to school. He's been on research
Yep.
expeditions with actual PhDs. Nobody said that like you have to have a degree to know what you're talking
No,
about.
I'm
But if
saying-
you want other people
Wait.
to know that you know what you're talking
all
about,
right, all right,
having
all
some
right,
sort of like
okay.
certification or something is gonna do that.
No, I'm saying
That's
Well, it's
why
gonna-
when
it's
people,
gonna help
at
a
least
lot.
sane people, get sick,
All right.
they go to a fucking hospital instead of a Walmart.
no, I'm saying this kind of schooling is new.
Well,
Yes,
in
in
America,
fact, this
it
kind
could
of
go either way.
What are you
schooling
talking
is
about?
Where we get
there are
down.
still fields where their degrees don't exist, like mine.
In all look, people
Sure.
can learn.
Sure.
People can learn without going to formal education. But I'm gonna big surprise. I'm a proponent of formal education, and so,
Same.
like the fact that somebody can
Depends.
learn something without formal education is a credit to their capabilities. But guess what?
Yeah.
Most people can't do that.
It doesn't mean
need
it's
formal
education's useless. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
still a great thing.
Well, I'm not
There's-
gonna. I'm not gonna get a mechanic job because I don't know nothing about mechanics. I'm gonna avoid that.
YouTube, dude.
What's that got to
Exactly.
do with anything?
Which is why that goes back to like, so what makes you expect a dentist to know anything about mechanics? Like,
Oh,
if they
boy.
did, why would they not have gone into that field?
And
All right,
we
and
are
Amy,
gonna cover
Amy,
that and more. Hey, you know what? I like this. I think we found a match for Debate Me, brah. It's We got Leophilius and Bubble.
Bubbles, yeah,
got
I
this.
like it.
Woohoo!
Oh,
And
sick
all
right
right,
there.
ladies and gentlemen, we are bringing in the mimes. We have been talking. Does
super
God
straight
exist?
mimes.
The
Don't
super
forget.
straight
They're
mimes.
super-
Do 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 do. Mana do 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 do. I'm contractually
They-
obligated to finish that.
They're super duper ultra maxi extreme ultra super
Oh,
straight minds.
Exactly. And all right, Pat, we have been midnight ranting on whether God exists. I hope you had a good time. What have you been up to? And what are your final thoughts?
Well, the debate was great. I actually had a really good time listening to it. This chat was fun. I'm a little worried that we are getting around arguments rather than approaching them directly. I think sometimes we're lacking nuance. I want to say thanks for Jason and the rest of you for defending formal institutes of education. They're there for a reason. And I just want to say thanks for having me, and I'll wait to talk to everybody after the show.
Great to have you on, Pat. Thank you.
Woohoo! Great to have you on, Pat. And in fact, you can check out episode 2 of Talk Skeptic.
We are the clay. Pat is the molder. He is shaping.
In fact, that's right. He just did an episode of origin stories, the mythical origin stories of mankind, which you can go check out. And all right, we are moving right along. Mark, we have been having fun asking the question, does God exist? Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts?
Thank you so much, Amy and James. A pleasure as always. You guys are fantastic, and thanks for everyone for being here. I had a lot of questions, and it was a lot of fun, and that debate was a lot of fun. And I think sort of you know what? I'll give credit to both David and Stuart. They did make it fun because Stuart was laughing and Dave. It's always nice to see a debate where people aren't absolutely fair. It's good to see people sort of laughing a bit and having some fun in debate. So I loved that. I'll say, Pat, you can mold my clay anytime, Pat. Cheers, man. I will.
Yeah, get it real soft. Oh yeah, now get it real hard.
Put some water on the clay. Yes.
I'm still regretting that title now.
Nice. But yeah, thank you all, and thanks to Will and Bubbles and everybody. I've missed Jason and Leo, of course, and Jen, of course. I really enjoy talking to Jen. So thank you, everybody. Much love, and I'll catch you next time.
Man. We love you, Mark.
Woohoo! Sending love, Mark, and with Jen in mind. Jen, we have been midnight ranting on Does God Exist?
Socratic gangbang.
I hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts?
You can find me at Church of Entropy here, and I've got Twitter and a bunch of other stuff, but I never do anything, so it's not super exciting. But anyway, thanks for having me. I had a great time as usual. I didn't get a chance to fully say what I thought about the debate was. But basically, upon further consideration, I think the Christian might have actually kind of won by just a smidge on the rhetoric and even the logic. But I think that we're both performing higher than what we were accustomed to. So that was sort of blew me away, but I didn't really get a chance to go over the whole bit. But in terms of what we talked about tonight, I love the fact that initially James set the intention to be more chilled and everything and respectful, and I hope that happened to some extent. Maybe prattling off random anecdotes that everyone has heard a million times at some point gets tedious. So to sort of wrap that up, I suggest people try to take a break from these cheesy metaphors that actually cause more confusion than clarity. Stop asserting negatives and try to steelman an argument before even thinking about criticizing it even once, no matter if you think the argument's dumb, because it's how do you know how dumb things really are? Because the universe maybe is confusing and seems dumb. I don't know. But, oh yeah, about this trivial stuff. Peer review and prime mover. Maybe there could be some sort of accord made between the atheists and the Christians where the atheists accept the prime mover argument and the Christians accept the peer review argument. Because in my view, they're both kind of trivial, but they don't really say very much. And it's the same thing with God existing. That's trivial because the universe obviously trivially exists, but the fact that the universe exists, that's not the important part. It's what is a consequence of this existence. So looking forward to all the future convos, and thanks again for having me. Love the channel. See everyone.
Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so very much, Jen.
your week in review. I guess it's going to be Sunday, right? Sunday night.
I'm not sure if that's happening anymore. I think we might be taking a break from that, but stay tuned to the channel because I did a math stream on Monday, and that was awesome.
Ooh.
And we'll probably be doing more like educational streams.
A calculus stream, right?
Well, it's like a preparation calculus. Like didn't really go too deep, but I'm down to do more like chill stream type things in the future. So we'll see.
All right.
Talk to everyone.
See, that sounds fun.
I killed the week in review. I guess I spoke too soon.
But sending love, Jen. And all right, we're moving right down the line. Bubble, we have been Midnight Ranting. We've been asking the question, does God exist? Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts?
Well, you can find me on YouTube. I'm Bubblegum Gun Corp. I put some scientific challenge videos for Veritasium. I can't pronounce it. Well, I'm you know me. I'm a polytheist. As for the debate, I think David won. I think the Christian had some very good points. As for the whole peer review, any sort of regulation just kills competition. And if you're worrying about like bad people getting through, like the flat earthers, the market's gonna take care of them. Nobody's gonna take them serious, and they'll be out soon. So that's really it. Like, there's no need for regulation. It self-regulates. Just bring in more competition. I don't really buy into this whole peer review gatekeeping. All right, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Bibble.
Thank you so very much, Bubble.
Keep going to the mechanic at Starbucks.
All right. We're moving right down the line. Jason, we have been Midnight Ranting on Does God Exist, along with a whole bunch of other fun theological concepts. Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts? Oh, close.
You're muted.
Mute.
Sorry about that.
You didn't name me.
I double tapped. Yeah, so big surprise, God doesn't exist. But I enjoyed the discussion tonight. I'm glad to see that there's so many people out here that know so much about peer review. All the massive papers that they've published. But whatever. I understand the concerns about that. Obviously, I support that position, but in all its flaws. Anyways, regardless of maybe the conflict in that respect, I like everybody on the stream. Even though I cannot agree with Jen half or most of the time, for some twisted reason, I really like Jen. I don't know why. I just like her. So I don't
it's
know,
weird, isn't it? She has this likability to her. It's like, yeah, you're wrong about
why do I like
everything,
you,
but
Jen? I don't know why. You're just a likable person. You have a likable personality. So, anyways, I'm not going to go on about the debate. I enjoy coming on the stream. I said what I was going to say. The only thing I want to mention is, one, I started this channel that I'm going to be talking to Otangelo on Saturday, and have a bunch of videos that I'm going to be posting.
Oh boy.
Christians and atheism. Yeah. So I'm talking to Otangelo on Saturday, like 5 or 7 o'clock. It might be 7 after this Giants debate by Modern Day Debate. So if you just Google
Eastern time?
Pacific time.
Pacific time. Okay.
Yeah. The Science Ultimatum. So if you put in Science Ultimatum, the Science Ultimatum with Jason Torn, that's my channel. I'm going to be putting some content up there. So that's how you get me. So
can't wait.
Yep.
You're going to have a role play.
Yeah, man. I'm doing a video on Cy Brugengate and Jeff Durbin and those guys. Yeah. So should be fun. Anyways, thanks, guys. Good seeing everybody.
Thank you, Jason. Good to have you on.
Good to have you on, Jason. And side 10. That should be fun.
Yeah.
You got Amy's attention with that one.
You're just brain fizz.
Oh, baby. Just brain fizz.
You're just brain fizz.
Right. How do you know you're not just in a vat right now? You could be.
Well, because we are. We just
we
are.
are in. And all right, thank you so much, Jason and Will. We have looking good in the studio. We have been Midnight Ranting on Does God Exist? Dun dun dun. Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts?
I mean, you can find me. I can't get out of the way. Right there, Will Stewart TJSC Rants. That's my channel. Does God exist? I believe he does. The bigger mystery is why do some people, when they wear their hat backwards, cover their eyebrows with their hat? That is the bigger mystery. The second one is, were these two people separated at birth?
Oh my
Dun,
god.
dun.
That is the bigger question. Are they twins? The world will
Could
never
be
know.
possible.
Plausible, based on our senses.
Logical, plausible, probable.
Anyway, folks, I had a great time. Always do. Thanks for having me.
Woohoo!
Thanks, Will. Good to see you got
Thank
your move
you
done.
so very much, Will.
Oh, I'm glad it's over, dude. It was horrible.
Yeah,
I think I'll
moving's
go
a
into
pain
some
in
of the
the butt.
stories in the backside, but it was.
Woohoo! And all right, we only got the people trying to land the ship. I'm giving it over to you, James. We've been talking. Does
me
God
already?
exist? We're down the line.
Well, yeah. So,
Oh wait.
What happened?
Did I skip Leo? I skipped Leo. Completely
Leo's
skipped
not on.
Leo.
Is Leo ready?
Is Leo?
Get me
That's
out of
right.
here.
Wait. He's got his headset on. Woohoo! Leo, we have been Midnight Ranting. We have been looking for God. We've been trying to figure out, does God exist? Hope you had a good time. Where can people find you? What are your final thoughts?
Yeah, so people can find me at my YouTube channel of the same name. I just recently uploaded the second part of a new series that I'm doing, Bad Science Communication, where I cover various articles from various outlets and magazines and the ways in which they very poorly communicate topics in science and how they could do better. My thoughts. So the one thing I wanted to say is that academia and academic literature are the standard. People can disagree with that, and that's fine. You don't have to believe that it's true, but not believing that something is true doesn't mean that it actually isn't true. I mean, you might not think that a table is 4 feet long, but it might actually still be 4 feet long. So yeah. As for God's existence, I brought up 2 points in my opening statement when we started the open mic, and it's a shame that we didn't really get to dive in more to the broader question of does God exist. And just to reiterate the point that I think is important is that God is defined as a being that is supernatural, at least in the classical sense. I think there are issues with somebody trying to define God as natural, but that's the discussion for another day. And it seems that the set of things that which is supernatural is ultimately indistinguishable from the set of things that which do not exist. Both sets being characterized by the properties of spacelessness, existing nowhere, timelessness, existing no when, and immateriality, or even further than that, non-physicality, or being constructed of no mass and no energy. And it seems to me that if you cannot distinguish something that is supernatural from something that doesn't exist, then what sense does it mean to speak of supernatural things as being existent? And if God is supernatural, it seems that thereby the most reasonable conclusion, the most probable conclusion, is that God does not exist.
Woohoo! Thank you so very much,
Thanks, Leo.
And all right, with that, we're handing it over to James.
Designated
and then
bullshit artist here.
Woohoo!
There you go.
And then I think we're gonna eventually head over to Discord. I think that's gonna be our new shenanigans.
Lord willing. God
Lord,
willing.
exactly. Goddess willing. But James, the keys are all yours. Let's land this plane.
Well, I want to thank everybody on the panel. It was a really good discussion tonight. A really good stream overall. We have, I think everybody was having a great discussion. Everybody was very polite and as a little bit spicy, but we didn't go too far. So I want to thank everybody for that. But we had some good discussions. So thanks, guys. Does God exist? No, of course not. Because if he did, we would have some reason to think that he does, but we don't. He's just not real. Like what Leo was saying, we had a guy on here the other day saying that you can weigh the soul. The soul weighs 21 grams, but doesn't know what it's made of, but it has mass. But everything that's mass has got to be made of something, right? Anyway. Have a good night. And what's wrong with the Miami Dolphins? They're going to be the NFL champions this year. Guaranteed going to the Super Bowl. Absolutely.
Woohoo! All right. Thank you so very much, James. And with that, I hope, girl, that's right, baby. Oh, it's the girl dick level. I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Midnight.
You might have to get your head out, Amy.
Sports. That's right. Go local team. On this episode of Midnight Ranting, does God exist?
Hold your breath. Do it.
Where we had some fun putting the deity into the hot seat. I want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our guests, Leo Felius, Will, Jason, Eddie, Speed of Sound, Pancake of Destiny, Oz, Bubble, Jen, Mark, and Pat, along with all our and Moonlight, and Gizmo, along with all of our lovely viewers, the people in chat, and our mods who make this stream so great. If you're feeling fancy, don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, and then set that bell icon at the bottom of the page so you can join our live streams.
Or go to Discord if you disagree with us.
Join us at our Discord community, which we'll be headed over to after the stream. Lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more fun content, feel free, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I'm Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball.
Bye, guys.
Z. Good night, everyone.